show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Kryptonite Show. I hope you enjoyed the intro. That was a lot of fun to play. I love it. And of course, welcome to the Kryptonite Show again and again. Your host, Superman, in the house. And man, oh man, we are having fun. We're expanding our presence and we are covering so many topics. It is fantastic. And this one is going to be absolutely alpha drop. It's going to be a very different show today. So sometimes we focus more on political stuff. Sometimes we focus more on full-on crypto projects and different things like that. It's like amazing. Today, we are going to be dropping some absolute major stuff here with some of the cool things around President Trump's secrets to pump crypto. And so the first probably 10, 15 minutes, we're going to be getting into the markets as usual because we've got to see where they're at the moment, look at some of the better performance. And then in the second half of the show, which is going to probably make up about 80% of the show, it's going to be probably a longer show, maybe an hour and a half, and we're going to be getting into Anthony Pompliano dropping some really cool stuff with an interview at the White House. So we're going to look at that around crypto. You don't want to miss that. If you're serious about crypto, making mad gains, making those big X's, big profits, this is an interview you do not want to miss. We're also going to be looking at Navarro as well, giving you the tip of the day. This is the secret sauce, and you don't want to miss that interview as well. That's a very short one. It's about 60 seconds long, but you don't want to miss that. And we're going to get up to that later on. That's going to be pretty alpha. You don't want to miss it. So we're going to be covering, like I say, the markets in the first sort of 10, 15 minutes. And then we're going to get into some of the secrets of Trump's pumping crypto. You do not want, this will make you so informed watching this, and we're going to probably stop on the way just to make a few comments, but most of the time we're going to try and let it flow. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Now, big shout out to everybody over on Rumble. You guys are absolutely amazing over there. And the thing about, like I say about Rumble, is that it's a freedom platform. It's the best out there, right? Freedom. We love it. And we're pushing back under President Trump's leadership and making the world a safer place, a more normal place, and a more prosperous place. That is very cool. And of course, we can't wait for the golden age of America to kick in. It's going to be pretty exciting. I'm going to talk about that today. Now, the other thing, of course, is if you're on YouTube and on X, big shout out to you over there. In fact, I need to make sure that, I reposted it on X just to make sure. So we're going to get into that before we get going. And a big shout out to all the new followers. I think we made like 40 new followers yesterday. So big shout out over there. I've had to start again over on X because, not every platform is as free as Rumble, right? And you get all sorts of crazy stuff taking down sites. I even saw, I think, Brandon from Rags to Riches, his X is taken down, and he had, I think, tens of thousands, of 15 to 20,000 followers or something. So it doesn't seem to matter how big you are. I think Somi, who's like up at like 40,000 followers, I think his channel got taken down sometime. So who knows what's going on over there? It really is crazy place. But it's going to be good. We're going to get into it. We're going to, fight back as it were. As Trump said, fight. You never give up. You never surrender. And that's what we're going to do, right? That's what we're going to do. So pretty cool. Let's get into it without any further ado. And we've got the Discord links in the video description. Sign up to that. And also we're going to put the Telegram ones, which is our latest platform expansion in Telegram. We're going to get into that too. And follow, and share around. We've got a free alpha list in there. You don't want to miss that. That's got some of the best cryptos on a pulse chain operating, but we are going multi-chain. We're going multi-chain soon. So you're going to see us covering not just pulse chain, but other chains as well. So I think base chain, sonic chain, things like that. We're going to be a bit exotic. Obviously, we're pulse chain maxis, and let's not beat around the bush. But we're definitely going to be covering a lot of cool stuff like that. So I hope you enjoy. All right, so let's get on without further ado. Let's say hello to a few people in the chat there. We got Brian in the house, our community leader. Big shout out, Brian, always crushing it out there. Brian's going to love this episode. This is on Bitcoin. He's going to love this one, aren't you, Brian? It's going to be good. Hectrog as well. Woohoo! Let's go. Absolutely. I love it. And we've got Wookie as well, our other community lead. Big shout out to you. And man, we've got such a great bunch of people in our Discord. You guys got to join up. Honestly, the link's in the video description. I really encourage you to. We got such a great bunch of people. If you're a great bunch of people, get in there. Now, we don't like narcissists, so narcissists stay out. But good, genuine, empathetic people. You're welcome. Come in. Or come in. All right. So we've got some good stuff going on there. Let's see here. We got Good God in the house there. Good morning. I love the old alien picture there and the king in the house. Big shout out to you guys. And man, I hope you guys have touched base with MVS, our promotional lead. Man, I think we can really help you. Just that with that sustained support. So get in there on that, and we look forward to working with you for sure. Big shout out to Ben. Hey, Ben, hope you liked the little 10-second countdown. That was pretty epic, hey, Ben? That's the sort of thing quality that Ben would bring. Ben's one of the, what I call him, he's one of the, let's see, I'm trying to, it's a good term for it, but he's one of the guys that makes things happen. He makes things happen. And it's a bit like a kingmaker, really. So, Ben, how about that? You never thought I'd say that, but there we are, kingmaker. And we got good God in the house there as well. So that makes sense with the king. And of course, you're a bit like a kingmaker. So it's pretty amazing. So, just as a little side, I don't want to get too distracted, but in the UK, they have there's a castle about an hour north of London, and it's just trying to remember the name of it. Someone might remember if they're in the UK. I just can't remember right off the top of my head. I got a name of a castle, but I don't think it's that one. So, but it's called Kingmaker's Castle, where they made kings for centuries there. So big shout out to Ben doing some amazing stuff out there with the creatives and networking. Big shout out. Super, you speak Italiano. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit, but it's probably all off the movies, right? All off the movies. What else we got going? We got a few other things there. We got Harry Williams. Hey, Harry. Good to see you as well. Hey, I love the fact that people get in the chat. It's so important. So do get in the chat there and say hello. Superman, why did you leave Mafia? Well, no, that's moved. We've moved on from Mafia, DGen. But I got kicked out of the Mafia family. Let's just put it that way. In a quite an unusual, bizarre way. But that's just what happens in life, right? We just move on. And we leave narcissists behind. That's pretty much what we do there, DGen. Craig Pitt says in the house there, morning all. Pump for Pulse Chain ecosystem. Absolutely, Craig. Pump it up. And what else we got going? Well, join the Discord today. That's very, very cool. Appreciate that, Brian. And I got a wrench for them if they show boss says it's Brian. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. We in life, you got to learn to get rid of narcissists. That's all we can say, and move in and hang out with all the positive people, all the people that want to help you and support you. And that's the sort of way we like to go, right? That's the kind of channel we like to be, like kind of people we want to be. All right, so let's get into it, folks. Without further ado, let's cover the stock market. And smash the subscribe button, smash the follow button. Let's get ready to rumble, as we say. Boom, let's go. So we got stock market today. S&P 500 ends higher on signs of further tariffs reprieve ahead. So that's pretty awesome. So obviously we know that there's a big tariff strategy going with Trump as he reorders the world's trade, and of course, particularly in relation to rogue actors or difficult actors that are out there, such as China and Vietnam and other countries. So it's pretty cool. S&P 500 ends higher. So this is bullish news for us today to start the week off too. This is Monday's results for the US stock market. The Dow Jones at the moment up 0.75%, 300 points to 40,500. So that's looking pretty good. The S&P 500 is up 0.8%, 43 points to 5,400. And the NASDAQ there is up 0.2%, 107 points to 16,831. So the NASDAQ, everything's green. So it's green day for us, folks. It's green day, which is pretty cool. And good God, there says, long live the king. There we go. Yes, sir, says Wookie. Yes, sir, indeed. All right, so that is looking pretty good. Let's look at the commodities. The US dollar is actually below 100 on the index. That's amazing. And that's at 99.6. So the US dollar is devalued compared to other trading partners. Remember, it got as high as about 108. So this is probably an outcome that Trump doesn't mind happening. He kind of wants that happen in some ways because obviously your exports get more competitive, but it makes prices, makes consumption more expensive with a depreciated dollar. So we'll see which side of the dollar they want to land on. Ultimately, they want to make the US reserve currency more firm, more long term, and this trade negotiations are playing big time into that, right? So all the ducks are in the row, as it were. Well over 75 countries, probably closer to 90 to 100 countries or something that has actually gone into negotiations with the US. With a few countries left out at the moment. So we'll see. I think they're all going to eventually hop in line in some way or another. Now, we got commodities at the moment. We got West Texas That is at $62 and Brent oil at $65. They're both up slightly. But the big thing about that is that they're down a lot, right? They're down. If we look at the 6 months, they peaked out back in January here at around $78, and now they're down at about like $65, or $62. So that's down dramatically. I mean, you're talking about $16 down, and you can thank President Trump for that. And you can imagine going into the summer coming up, that's going to be amazing, right? Summer and driving in America, people are going to be very happy to have much cheaper prices there. Let me know if you're in the United States what the gallon price is at the moment, and if you've seen it dropping along with the oil price. Let us know in the chat. That'd be great. We got the gold at the moment, 3,228. Man, that's looking so good, so strong. And potentially the target is about 3,500. That's from Morgan Stanley. So we'll take that one. And silver there, $32, and that is up slightly as well. Now, I do think silver is probably going to run away at some stage, and this is kind of the position that Rich Dad Poor Dad has. And we'll see whether they can get up to $75 or so on a tier. So let's look out for silver. Now, obviously, tariff reliefs for electronics have come into play, possible concessions for autos as well, and but tariffs on pharma are in the spotlight there. So pharma being targeted there, and so it should be, right? They rip us off, these pharma companies. And so that's kind of cool. President Donald Trump said he would impose tariffs on imported pharmaceuticals in the not too distant future, though he also signaled that there could be a reprieve for automakers, suggests that he may temporarily exempt the auto industry from the 25% tariffs imposed last month. And of course, General Motors, Ford Motors, and were sharply higher on that news. The update comes just days after offering reprieve on levies that targeted electronics such as smartphones and semiconductors. The White House announced that smartphones, computers, and other electronics would be temporarily exempted from Trump's punishing duties. Trump did, however, say that this was only temporary and suggested that he would unveil a tariff rate on imported semiconductors over the next week. Still, the exclusion of electronics from Trump's 145 tariffs on China granted some reprieve to tech majors with heavy exposure to China, specifically Apple and Dell Technologies, which was up 2% and 4% respectively, although well off the highs of the day. So some pretty different moves there. Obviously, you can't just replace everything at the same time. And the other thing with the high tariffs, as soon as you go like over 100% tariffs, and we're at 145% against China, you're pretty much, wiping out a lot of trade. And therefore, a lot of Chinese goods will end up going to other first world countries and, on the high end value products, and then the low end value products to second, third world countries, right? And so that's kind of what you see. And then America ends up sourcing from alternative countries as well. And that actually, weakens China ultimately, because remember, America is the big consumer. So don't be fooled by a lot of the mainstream media stuff. America's the big consumer. And that's why all the countries have come very, very quickly to get their ducks in a row in the new world order for trade and relations. So it's going to be pretty cool. Remember, we haven't seen any of that sort of stuff since the 1980s with Reagan and since the 1940s with the Bretton Woods gold standard. So this is a big change. We're actually witnessing, a pretty significant historical event within a couple of 100 years, right? There's a very, very significant economic change. Why I said the exclusions were aimed at giving companies more time to shift production to the United States, and that's always going to be the issue, right? But you put the pressure on, you get all the ducks in a row with all the countries coming to you, and then you can open up some exemptions and exclusions, right, for the companies. It all kind of works together. They have flexibility, right? And you hear Trump saying, we've got flexibility, you got to keep flexible, and that's what he's doing, right? So pretty cool. Fed Governor Christopher Wallace said Monday, if the impact of tariffs threatens a deep economic slowdown, then he would back a sooner rate cut, even if accompanied by a jump in inflation. And that's what we want to hear, baby. That's what we want to hear. More good news from Trump's strategy. To be honest, they would have known all these things flow off the pressure they put on with the Trump tariffs. So this is very, very bullish. And of course, Trump wants to get Fed saying no rate cuts, maybe one rate cut. And of course, Trump's saying we need lower rate cuts. And the reason why, right? We need cheaper oil because that fuels the whole economy. It's in like 90% of the products. And of course, we need cheap interest rates because that fuels the financial system, right? People can borrow cheaper. And it also makes risk on assets like crypto and stocks way more valuable, right? So that people want a higher return, they have to go to take risk, right? So pumps that as well. And so we're getting this holy grail. That's what Trump wants to line up, right? Wants to line up the holy grail to set up the golden age of America. So it's pretty exciting. If the slowdown is significant and threatens recession, then I would expect favor cutting the FOMC policy rate sooner and to a greater extent than I previously had thought. Things are changing. things are changing. And of course, Waller remarks echo that of the Fed members, including that of Boston Fed President Susan Collins, who recently said the Fed was absolutely prepared to stabilize market with various monetary policy tools as and when needed there. So pretty cool. And of course, we're getting a flurry of banking earnings as well. But I don't want to get too much into that because we want to focus on the stock market. So that's kind of where we are there. Let's see if we've got any comments in the chat while we're going. So I don't want to get too far ahead. We've got Gugod there. Long live the king. Absolutely. And we got Brian in as well. What's that? $3.55 a gallon in Phoenix. And presumably that's come down a bit. So that's very, very exciting. Was it up around $5 at some stage? Over $5, maybe $6? That was way back, I guess, when oil was up like $122. So it was probably up at that level at some stage. Hasn't changed much yet, says Brian. Yeah, I think it probably will feed through pretty soon. Now, they do futures contracts and forward contracts and things like that in oil with the pricing, so it probably has a bit of delay on the retail and also profit gouging, right, from the oil companies and the petrol stations and things like that. So you get a bit of that. Might take a bit of a slow time. They've quick to raise the rates and slow to drop them, right? It's a normal thing. We got Fat Sammy in the house there. Big shout out to Fat Sammy. And Fat Sammy is part of the Pulse Bitcoin community. Used to be a former community leader in our Discord as well. And he's a man of many talents and doing a lot of different stuff out there. So big shout out to Fat Sammy. The tariffs mainly affect American companies importing goods rather than the average taxpayer, says Fat Sammy. That's correct, yeah. That is the case. So let's move on into the crypto results. So we got pretty much green. In fact, we're going to change our view here a bit here. So let's do that. Actually, let me just make sure I'm set up here for the rest of the show. And bam, let's get into it. So nice and green for Bitcoin. Bitcoin 84,500, up 0.4%. And the Bitcoin dominance sitting at 61.6%. 61.6% for the Bitcoin dominance. Not too bad. And Ether is up 0.7%, $1,619. Everything else is pretty much red at the moment. So they're all pretty much down. So that's kind of where we're going to leave that because we're going to be racing through the markets. Now, here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin, and of course, you guys know by now, if you've been watching regularly, this is the orange circle of volatility, and it has paid out pretty much because of the tariffs, right? Tariffs. And that's because we had the 10% tariff baseline coming in on the 5th of April, and then we had higher specific tariffs coming in on the 9th of April. And of course, that led to the big pullback in the markets. We went all the way down to 74,500, and then Trump, reversed a lot of it and said, hey, we're going to give a 90-day extension. And, of course, all the countries lined up in a row. And so here we go all the way out, probably into possibly early July. But I think it's going to be all wrapped up in June, is my guess. Now, the other big thing we had today was Trump's tax. Looks it's progressing very well in the House and the Senate. And it looks like it's got its initial approvals. And so that's looking very, very bullish. So these are the three legs, right? The three legs are what? Deal with the federal budget. So they earn the federal budget's about 5.5 trillion in income. The expenditure is about 7.5 trillion in income. So the deficit is 2 trillion, and that's unbelievable, right? It's unbelievably crazy. One out of that 50% or 1 trillion of it is a debt repayments. Imagine paying $1 trillion debt repayments, and it's slightly over $1 trillion. That's crazy, right? So what's Trump been doing with that, right? That deficit, of course, is adding to the U.S. Total budget, a deficit. Sorry, the total debt of the U.S., which is 37 trillion. It is in crazy situation, right? Crazy situation. And it was only getting worse and worse and worse by the year. The Democrats were blowing it out. They don't care. They're just little gangsters. And Trump's coming in to save it for the people, right? Save it for the people. And of course, if he can get that deficit from 2 trillion down to a balanced budget, in other words, zero, that is a huge, huge thing. Now, ideally, he wants to move into surplus and pay down that big, big debt. And of course, he's got a number of ways of doing that. One way, of course, is doing it through surpluses. Another way is, of course, doing it through assets, right? Changing your balance sheet. And that's the other way he can do that. So, crypto and Bitcoin can play a huge role in that, especially if Bitcoin heads to the multi trillion dollar market. We hope it will, right? That could offset, if the US government had enough holdings, it could offset even their debt that they have, as crazy as that, 37 trillion. So the world's going to change pretty big. And of course, Trump's trying to set this up all by pretty much the 4th of July. That is kind of the deadline, lay the foundation and of the strategy. So what's the first strategy? The first leg of the three-legged stool, deal with the budget. And of course, that means also putting in place Doge, or Doge, as my American friends say, Doge, Doge. And of course, that we've got Elon Musk working on that. He's getting hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and other wasteful spending, and hopes to target at least $1 trillion. So that's about 50% of the budget deficit. And of course, they're also looking at the third leg, which is around. Sorry, let me get on to. So part of that is also the tax, right? Part of the first leg. Leg of the three-legged stool is tax, and of course that's going very well at the moment. Good news going there, and hopefully that's going to get sorted out by June as well. It already seems to be running well ahead of time. So that's going to be huge, and that's going to be lower tax cuts. That's going to help spur economic growth, right? Spur economic growth, and of course, so increase potentially the government's take, because that's going to, the growth hopefully will go from, let's say 2.5% up to say 3, 4 or more percent. And we haven't seen those sort of GDP growths since 1940s, 1950s. And so let's see how we get. I think it's going to be pretty cool. So that's how he's going to do it. That is the magic. And of course, the second leg, of course, is going to be starting today. Actually, well, they've already done precursor stuff, but today's really going to kick off, and that is dealing with regulations on Wall Street, regulations on Main Street, and of course, dealing with budget bank leverages, particularly small to medium banks, particularly in the Midwest and rural states, the Republican states, which have been pretty much abused by the Democrats, and of course by the big banks on the coasts. So this is going to be a huge change that's going to increase leveraging and, of course, benefit farmers and all sorts of workers, coal miners, everyone else going to benefit from that. It's a fundamental change, right? So it's also going to leverage the US asset base. It's going to be amazing. So it's going to be pretty cool. And then, of course, the third leg is going to be something he's already working on, as we know, and that is the third leg of the three-legged stool strategy is to deal with the international trade order. And of course, that's going to have multiple outcomes, including world security and of course also economic prosperity for the United States. Now, if the United States does well, then ultimately the rest of the world will do well, because as they get richer, they spend more and they buy more goods from around the world. So it's eventually a win-win. Short-term pain, but for a pretty big win there. And we'll probably see a number of trade arrangements and practice change a lot. So that's kind of where we are with the three-legged strategy of Trump. So if you want to know what he's doing, those are kind of the three legs of things he's doing, and he's got to lay it out pretty much by July the 4th. And I'm expecting on July the 7th for a big party if he does that. That's kind of what I'm expecting, a big party on July the 7th, and bring it on. And of course, that's, as I understand it, I think it's 250 years of the United States on July the 4th, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's kind of where we head there on the overview. At the moment, we've got Bitcoin there as just below the 200-day moving average, which is 85,000. We've got the 50-day moving average is 85,500. We're trying to avoid a death cross, right? And at the moment, we're kind of just teasing here. We will need some more green days to slowly shift us up to avert the death cross. And I'm sure the rest of the market makers know that. And so let's see. I think we're going to be pretty positive moving from here. So the only real risk at the moment is probably China. And of course, that will give us a bit of volatility. But I think what we're going to see in over these 90 days, and this is the good news, that's the third leg of Trump's three-legged stool strategy, as I call it. And that is we're going to see multiple free trade deals be done with these countries. And they're going to come out one after another. There's already about 10 of them that are very close. And they're in principle deals, right? So all of the fine, the paperwork will be done, but in principle deals are probably going to get announced. This is going to be hyper bullish for the market, and this is some of the good secret news that I'm telling you about. Is that it's going to be massive for the marketplace, and we're going to get some beautiful pumps on those announcements, particularly the bigger countries as well. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and we're going to find out the detail and the nature of those in principle deals coming up. But it's a lot. It's pretty much the world order's being rejigged. And it's going to be fun to see. Now, that will hopefully have an influence not just on economics, but also on societies, because obviously in the West, we've had secular progressives and other bad actors take over our societies and try to take away our freedoms, common sense, and the rest of it. So hopefully it's going to have pressure on those countries to pull back from their authoritarianism, because we want to be free. We want to be flourishing. And we don't want to be slaves in a system, right? So that's kind of very key there. It's a fundamental thing right now to defend that. This is the pivot line in history, right? Otherwise, we'll be stuck in oppression for decades potentially. So we don't want that. So this is kind of where we are here at the moment on the markets, and I'm expecting some pretty good move for the next move rallying into the second quarter and third quarter of this year. And of course, the target prices, as you know, 150 to 250k, 200k medium is what most analysts expect, and I think that still holds despite the tariff wars or tariff realignments. And then we're going to get in potentially even with the upside potentially 400k. But we're going to talk more about that when we get into the next section of the show. So how are we doing for time? I just don't want to get too far behind here. 25 minutes. I'm already over my 10-15 minutes, but that's crypto for you. All right, let's get into it. So we've got the markets at 2.76 trillion, down 0.5% today. And for Monday, opening the week up, we've got Bitcoin obviously number 1, Ethereum number 2, XRP number 3, BNB number 4, Solana number 6, USDC at number 7, Tron number 8, and Dodge at number 9, and Cardano rounding our top 10 at there as well. And the best performer overnight was pretty much Ethereum, up 0.4% at the moment. The best performer over the last week has been Solana, up 19.3%. So there has been some pretty mad gains there. As you guys know, Solana kind of fell off the meme craze in January, and it looks like it's returning here. So that's pretty bullish news for Solana. So you might want to pay a bit of attention to Solana at the moment. If you're trading over there with speculation or whatever you're doing there. It looks like Solana's picking up pace. Tron is up 10% as well. So it was XRP. So they're kind of the next two. They're doing pretty well. Kind of cool. Now, over in the top 100, let's have a look at who's performing the best. Well, we've got Fartcoin still performing well, up 9.9%. This has been a real winner this week. And we've got Casper there up 6%, and Monero up 4.4%. Allogrand there is up 1% at the moment. So that's kind of the leaders there. I don't know why there's out of order, but this is the way it goes. We got Fartcoin on the week. Let's look at the week. Fartcoin number 1, 70% on this Fartcoin. I don't know, toilet humor. People love it. I don't know. You check it out. We got Jasmy up 60%. Another good winner there. Flare up 39% and Hyperliquid up 32%. Rounding up a top 5 for the week is Render up 30%. So those are all the top performers in the top 100. So if you're looking for more a solid base in your portfolio, but with potential really good upside, these are performing very, very well at the moment. So kind of cool. Top traders, top gainers overall in the top 17,000, or these 17,000. We got Vthor there up 47%. Array up 51%, and Ava AI, if you're into the AI theme, is up 23.7%. And finally, what is the drama last night? You guys know it. It is Mantra. Mantra is trading there, and still down 39% at 59 cents. I don't know. Will it be a pickup? I don't know. It was a big rug pull, wasn't it? Insider job, they say. But there we go. We got Cubic at the moment up 2.3%, and Ethereum there is also trending, which is pretty funny to see that trending there. But that is where we are on the markets. And finally, woohoo, we got some good news in the market. So should we get into that? Let's do it. I feel good. No, I'm serious. It's going to be good. All right, so let's get into it. We got some magic. It'll be good. All right, so we got some news here, and that is Ethereum dApps are outpacing Base and BNB chain. So even though Ethereum's been underperforming, it actually is doing kind of well with the dApps. So back in the 2021, it dominated like over 90%, I would say, of the smart contracts, right? With Solidity, and here we are. It's still performing pretty well, despite the value not completely showing up in the price chart, because obviously there's a lot of its upgrades that Ethereum's done have kind of been really good, but undermined its value in some ways. It still has the strong institutional banking like ETFs, just like Bitcoin does, and a lot of accumulation going on, as someone said about Trump accumulating, but it's not too bad. Ethereum continues to solidify its position as the leading platform of decentralized applications, or dApps, with the dApp network generating a staggering $1 billion in fees during the first quarter of 2025. Trailing far behind is Base, Coinbase's Layer 2 chain, securing second place with $193 million in dApp fees, reflecting its growth traction, but still a significant gap from Ethereum's dominance. BNB chain dApps followed closely with $170 million, while Arbitrum brought in $74 million. Avalanche Seed Chain rounded out the top 5 with its dApps generating $27 million in fees. So you can see applications on Ethereum have been very, very good indeed. And of course, that underscores Ethereum's continued leadership in user engagement and transactional activity within the DeFi, finance, and Web3 application space, while Layer 2s and alternative chains are gaining ground. So Ethereum's established infrastructure and robust development ecosystem remain key drivers in the market. So that's pretty cool. with that. And with DApp usage and feed generation measuring as critical indicators of network utility and adoption, Q1 results show that Ethereum still sets the pace in the ever-expanding blockchain system. So, don't knock Ethereum. I think it's going to have its day. It's certainly earning most of the fees and doing pretty well. So that's a pretty bullish development for crypto, with obviously those fees there making, a really, justifying the utility behind these chains as well. Not just speculation. DeFi crypto lending surpasses 19 billion in 2024, nearly doubling CeFi counterpart. Yay! Because you guys know we're in DeFi, right? This is true crypto. And of course, open borrows on DeFi protocols reached 19 billion in fourth quarter, nearly doubling 11 billion registered by the centralized platforms. Of course, centralized platforms really did get quite gutted when one after another a project kept falling. And as you guys know, many of those guys used to criticize Richard Hart, right? They used to slam Richard Hart. They were on the video, yeah, the real scam is Richard Hart, but we're really good. Next minute, multi-billion dollar collapse. Thanks very much. It's kind of like that, right? And so, yeah. A recent Galaxy report highlighted that despite Tether leading the crypto lending market with two other companies, decentralized applications posted nearly double the amount in outstanding loans. Kind of the play there. And according to actually, I might move back to the view here. Let's go back to this view. And according to the report, the crypto lending market stood at roughly 30 billion, excluding collateralized debt positions or CDPs. This exclusion provides a clear view of the crypto lending market. The report noted that some overlap may exist between the total size of centralized finance loan book and the supply of CDP stablecoins. The reason that specific CeFi lenders use crypto collateral to mint CDP stablecoins, which are then lent to off-chain borrowers, creating the potential for double accounting. So a few cool things there for that. So it's just a generally good trend, right? DeFi lending up 960% since 2022. It is really cool. So we're heading in the right direction. DeFi really needs to dominate crypto, and that it can take time, but it's happening here all over the place, happening and things. And lending is obviously a huge part of crypto, so it's great to see that happening. Now, finally, not only is DeFi Ethereum doing well and a DeFi doing well over CeFi, but we've also got crypto generally. This is CeFi in this case, starting to expand over TradeFi. Isn't that crazy? So all these trends are happening, and this is on the back of President Trump's Bitcoin strategic reserve, and of course the altcoin stockpile. This is massive, right? This is massive. So we're already heading in the right direction, and so relatively, we're still early, which seems bizarre, right? 2008, 2009 for Bitcoin, and here we are, 2025, and we're still kind of early, but things are really on a takeoff. I mean, you guys are into crypto at such a good time, and yeah, we go through huge volatility sometimes. But man, it is looking absolutely baked in the cake for some mad gains. And this bull market is going to be particularly good as we're entering it. Kraken expands beyond the crypto with stocks and ETF trading. Crypto exchange Kraken announced the launch of commission-free trading for stocks and exchange-traded funds, expand the product suite of beyond cryptocurrencies. I actually do like, Kraken's one of the better centralized exchanges, so I think they do a pretty good job. Kraken said in an announcement that initial rollout is live for more than 11,000 stocks and ETFs. I think that's a real win, and they do so well, these centralized exchanges, and it's kind of a necessary, a good year for crypto to be able to onboard people, right? And hopefully they eventually move into DeFi a lot more as they go, right? That's kind of not your keys, not your coins. And that's a fundamental thing. You want to be your own bank, right? Which means you got responsibilities of the bank, but it's kind of the way you want to go there. So kind of cool. And according to the update, users can now buy stocks, crypto, and ETFs listed on New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ via their Kraken account. So it's pretty huge. US rollout will be followed by expansion of clients in the United Kingdom, Europe, Australia, and that is pretty exciting. So if you're in Australia, that's coming to you. If you're UK, you too as well. So pretty exciting. And of course, Kraken there, founded in 2011. And trades Bitcoin and over 300 digital assets on there. Pretty cool. They need Pulse Chain. Is Pulse Chain over there? I don't think it is. Let's get there. So finally, that's going to lead us into a long show because we're going to talk about Pulse Chain now, day 704. But before we do that, let's get into the comments and catch up on a few more of those. Let's see here. We got Craig. I love that comment there, Craig. Pumped for Pulse Chain. Absolutely. Good morning as well. We got Brennan in the house there, our TA guru in the house. Bonjour, Brenton. Bonjour. Great, glad to see you. And Goodrow there. Long live the king. Yeah, we should probably have a try and look at the king performance today if it pops up there. Let's see. We're going to jump through some of these comments down here. I think I've gone through those. Let's see here. Killing me, boss, says Brian. Killing me. Hasn't Elon stepped down from Dodge? He's on a special agent for the United States government, and yeah, he's got for 90 days. I'm not sure if that's quite finished yet. I think it's got a little bit to go. I think it's finishing this month though. It is finishing this month, I believe. Good question there. I'm bullish on PHEX. Anyone else? Now, hey, look, everybody's bullish on PHEX, I think, in this community. Hex on Pulse Chain is just, it seems like a no-brainer. The liquidity is thinned out. The inflation's cut from 7.5 to 1.6 hex per T-share. It just seems like game on for that. That's just a no-brainer. If people haven't accumulating some good old Richard Hart coins, it's don't complain later. Don't complain later. Let's see here. We got Fat Sammy says Hex in the OG shareholder token of the chain and store of value. Pulse was created for Hex. Don't forget that. Let's see what else we got there. Fat Sammy says EU launching CBDC Euro in October. That's our cycle top call, says Fat Sammy. And I put 10 stacks into Mantra. I got wrecked. Don't listen to friends. Yeah, that's unfortunately. So sorry if I hear that, Fat Sammy. We want everybody to do well in crypto. That's part of our principles here. Facts friends, says Brian. What else there? Let's jump over there. Sammy says Ether's so oversold, it's crazy. So manipulated to draw lows, so institutions can buy over the counter, like gold was manipulated before. Sup, buddy, to Brian, I think you're talking to there. Remember how much Hex you can buy now for $100. Yeah. Honestly, if you've not got some Hex, I would probably accumulate it. Not financial advice, of course. Do your own due diligence, but Fat Sammy's right about that. And we've been talking about Hex being ridiculously a great opportunity. So you got to pick it up. But you don't have to. You do, but you don't. Whatever. You guys know what I mean. What else there? Without volatility, you don't get the mad gains. Just saying, says Brian. Have we got Kai in the house there? Pulse Chain is so much fun. It is too. What else do we got? Ben says, who let Fat Sammy through the door? Yeah, Fat Sammy is crushing it in the chat today. Who let Fat Sammy in the door? I don't know. We got that double up there with the old ghost face there. Not bad. All right, let's move on. Let's get into the Pulse Chain update. And let's have a look at PHEX after all. We're on day 704. Woohoo! And of course, Pulse Chain launched on the 13th of May, 2023. It was a fork of Ethereum full system stake copy on the 10th of May. And here we are 704 days later. Pretty crazy. And of course, we got Pulse at the moment, quadruple 0256, up 2%. So you still got your opportunity to pick it up. It's still sitting here around 0.25%, 25% of the mean sacrifice price. So don't cry later, as it say. Pulse X at the moment, quadruple 0216, 1.84% increase, and the buy and burn is at 1,374 billion of the public supply. So not excludes the OA, the Origin account, and sacrifice wallets. They've got 6.94% of Pulse X is bought up and burned so far. Now, obviously, Pulse X is a big DEX that was founded by Richard Hart on top of Pulse Chain, and it has been operating very, very well for the most part. We got incentive token is at $1.20, is up 1.3%, and we've got the total supply around 55 million. And remember, Richard Hart's team recently cut the inflation by 20x, so we're only growing about 5% of what we used to be, which is about 0.03 incentive tokens per second. That's about 2,600, if I remember rightly, per day. So that's kind of where we are. So pretty low inflation on 55 million. It's gonna, it's game on, right? We also know that in the Master Chef contract, it talks about once incentive token is reasonably distributed, that it could be handed over to the DAO to control. And all hell break loose. That's just jokes between friends. All right, so it's probably true though, right? Probably true. I know. I'm not joking about it. I know, it's probably true. Probably true. All hell break loose with the DAO. But we've got Hex at the moment at 6,600th of a penny, and that is up 0.8%. So you got an opportunity to get into Hex. It just had a little mini rally, right? Had a little mini rally, and it's just having a little breather. But man, it's holding up pretty well. And once it moves, it's going to go. It's going to go, and it's going to be, it's going to be gone bigger. We had 700th depending on EHEX. Now, I'm going to quickly talk about PDI Maker Theory. Obviously, we've seen that the numbers are getting pretty low for a potential flop auction. It's continually being pushed out, but the numbers are getting pretty low. I did a post on that on X yesterday. And so, and if they are able to get control of the Maker contract, they are able to fix up things there. I still have a problem with the historical prices in their oracles, because we haven't had one, right? But maybe they'll be able to do something there. We'll see. And Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see the flop auction. We'll go step by step, I guess, and that would help pump Hex to multiple dollars in the whole Pulse chain. It is definitely there. Will the OA do collateral backing for it? I mean, there's all parts of the maker theory. We shall see. But I'm kind of a neutral position at the moment on this. And I look at evidence. So probably the best person I do enjoy is 99 Capital out there because he provides evidence, and you don't have to agree with it. Of course, you can point out the flaws that are still there, as I do. But we're going to be watching it. It's going to be an interesting narrative. Now, what do I think people should put their value in? Well, back into the main ones. Right? Put them in the Richard Hart stuff. We've got thinner liquidity. Inflation's been cut. It's game on. We've got bullish forward-looking markets, so I wouldn't be mucking around too much with that. You can always pick up a little bag. It's up to you what you do, right? So that is kind of where we are. But don't miss out the majors, right? The Richard Hart coins and some of the better utilities like BTC, some of the better investable tokens. They're definitely something worth getting into. And if you haven't got into stuff like that, get into our strategy club. The link is in the video description for that, where I talk more about that. And I have got scheduled for today to do an update in the old strategy club. So that is coming out. All right, so that's kind of where we are. Let's have a look at the gas prices. Richard Hart said as the chain gets more valuable, the gas will get more expensive. And well, we've definitely been starting to see some of that, right? We had 2.6 million beats. We're at 2 cents for a Pulse X at the moment. So at the moment, it's kind of on the low end. So it's nice and cheap to do business there at the moment on Pulse Chain. Validators at the moment, 49,000 active validators. That's gone up slightly recently, and that seems to be steady today. And the bridge, we've been looking at that, 82.3 million. I think that's up about 600K from yesterday, if I remember rightly. About 600K increase there. So good news on that one. And of course, we've got Bitcoin and ETH up there a little bit there. We'll keep tracking those. I see EDI there is at 22.7 million. We'll try and keep track of that too. All right, that is where we are on the markets. Let's get on to the Pulse Chain volume. And we can see volume on Pulse Chain 20.4 million. We got the transactions about 180,000. Of course, we've just come off the weekend, and these are kind of Monday's results, US time. And we've got a few tokens here popping up here. This one's been around for 2 days, called Secret Conspiracy. It's up 2,600%, so it got pumped pretty big there. Got pretty thin liquidity at 29K and done about 219K in volume there. So nice little move there from Conspiracy. Let's have a check out the website because it's kind of cool with the Conspiracy thing, which is all part of the branding, right? All part of the branding. So that is it. Residents of the Secret Initiative with the Treasury. We've got Treasury there, chart and Treasury. And this is the website. So it looks like it's done some pretty cool things. Treasury and Arcane Reserve. 5% tax is levied on each transaction funneled into the Treasury shrouded by mystery. The reservoir of resources is governed by the principles known only to the initiated. Expectations are eschewed. The Treasury's purpose is to serve the collective. So there we go. That's some of the details there. We'll see what happens to that. Looks like they've burnt about 7% or something of the token. That is where we are on that one. Let's jump back out of there. So we're going to look at the hourly chart there. Now, obviously, this is highly speculative, but that's the chart up and down. We've seen that a million times in crypto. You can check that out in your own time, I guess. We've got RSI oversold there, been around for 2 months. It's up 11%. Nice little pump there. FinFire there up. It's been around for a year. That's up 28%. PZen is up 21% there. Is this classic PZen or is this new PZen? Let me have a look. I think it's new PZen. And it looks like it had a bit of a pump there. I'm not sure if there's any news from Jack Levin today around X1, but this is probably going to take off big time. So we shall keep a lookout for that. X there is up 21%. PDI, this is PDI. This is, I think there's a pump tires version of it, 7 days. This is up 12%. Pump tires itself, kind of the main coin for the pump tires that Richard Hart launched. In addition to cutting inflation, he launched the pump tires, burns a lot of Pulse and PulseX and things like that. He also has control over a lot of the tokens to some degree. We're at 11.5% up there, so it's not too bad at 1 cent for pump tires. And of course, I'm going to do a video on pump tires, so that's coming up. So I won't talk too much about pump tires now, but I will be doing one there for pump tires coming up, all the pump tires. So look forward to that. It's probably going to be tomorrow's video, probably. X Game is coming up there. Don't fade X Game. That's coming up. Of course, Firewhale and Randy Alasky. We're going to be covering that full on for the X Game that's coming up there. That could be a viral killer game for Pulse Chain, and we might see the multi-chain too. And we might see that the casino license come out in the next week or 2 or 3 weeks. It's got to be pretty close. So it's pretty cool. Trump token, another pump tires, up 6.7%. Up X token, inspired there from, I think that's Pulse from Haunted. That's up 5.5% as well. Gas Money, looks like it's our top printer token today. Printed tokens have pretty much been dominating Pulse Chain along with pump tires. And we can see that, it's doing pretty well up there at the moment. Number 13, up 4%. Doubt token, another pump tires there, is up 3%. I'm pretty sure it's pump tires. Yeah, pretty sure. And Maker there, obviously part of the Maker theory there, has been pumping recently. So there's a bit of love there. But, it's down $9.47 at the moment on the daily. But had a good day the other day. And what else there we got moving there? So PulseX obviously is up. Solid X there, along with X Game up the top there, all pumping. And this is also the pump tires. That's up 2% at the moment as well. Remember the 3 pump tire ones and the original Solid X token. And the Solid X, the original one's going to win one that gets burned from the game profits, right? So just remember that. And multi-chain too, right? Or omni-chain in this case, it's going to be. So that's kind of cool. So we've got quite a few greens ones there, a couple of printer tires, a lot of pump tires, and a couple of new protocols there. Not too bad, not too bad. All right, so that's kind of where we are. We're going to jump over to Titanex quickly, have a look at that. We've got obviously a little bit of a move in Titanex. When this goes, it's going to go pretty hard, I imagine. Once the buy and burns are all turned off at the moment, they get turned on. The Omni-Chain stuff gets launched, especially with Jake Sharp's stuff that he's been building for the last 2-3 months. So game on. Also Dragon X2. Shogun going Omni-Chain, that's already up a little bit here. What else we got going? Hydra and Hyper buy and burns are turned off. They get turned on as well. So there's 4 main buy and burns all turned off. They get turned on, and these things are going to really start to fly. Buy low, right? Buy low. It's at the bottom of the cycle, so you can do what you want with that. Morpheus there going to Omni-Chain, going to base chain and pulse chain, I believe, with the V3 decks from Brandon. Although he did get smashed off X from the looks of it. I don't know whether he's returning yet, but we'll see. What else we got there? Matrix up 28%. Nice little mover there. Let's show down here. The big one, of course, is the first Omni-Chain project is Uranus. That is up 15%. So shout out to James and the dude there. They are crushing it on there. And they got more to come with multiple pools and LP webbing over there. We might get a lot more bot activity as well. That would speed up the buy and burns and the 10% distribution back to holders. Up to 2.76 X28. I covered that when it launched, and it's been turned out to be a goodie. It's turned out to be a very good one there. The project's coming up, of course. We're looking for Bitcoin Genie, maybe within a month's time or something. And, of course, we've also got Taurus there coming from another influencer, Cryptographics, who does great educational videos. That is pretty much it on our mix there for the crypto. That was pretty much it. So I was supposed to do in 10, 15 minutes. And you got, how long did it take me? 47 minutes. But, hey, look, it was lots of good stuff. We've got a full market update there. And we covered just about everything. So it's pretty exciting. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's get into the final comments before we get into the second part of the show, which, like I said, the show's going to be long. It's going to be longer than I thought, probably close to 2 hours. But, hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Let's see here. We got Toby One in the house. Hey, Toby One. Toby One is a long time Hexkin, Pulskin, and of course, a pretty famous influencer in his own right, a TA Guru Master. It's great to have you in the chat, Toby One. Long time no see, but good to have you once again. And man, I got into the official Pulse Chain group. I hadn't been there for years, as you guys know. I hadn't been on Telegram for years because I'm really not into cell phones. So that was kind of the thing. And I don't want to get into the backstory about cell phones, but there's a reason why. And so, yeah, but I finally got one, after being asked by a few people, and eventually got on to Telegram, and I'm enjoying it now. But it's very different a place from a lot of the other platforms. I'm back into the Pulse Chain official chat there. I think it's almost 40,000 people in that chat. And just got in there the last couple of days, and it just feels a bit funny because I was in there, at the day one, right? It's in there day one to all the early OGs, Toby One and other people probably all there. And we were in for a lot of fun there. So, and of course the Hex ones. I don't think I've joined the Hex one, but I'm pretty sure the Hex one's there as well somewhere. But big shout out to Toby One, OG in the house. Sup, yo. Fat Sammy's an OG too, so we've got him in the house as well. So we've got a lot of great people in the chat there. Doing some pretty cool. We've got Hexcavator from the USA. Again, good to see Hexcavator. Hope you're doing as well. We're about to get into the secret source of Trump's plan there. I've kind of laid his overall strategy with the three-legged stool strategy about the federal budget, taxes, and of course, cutting out costs, as well as the second strategy, getting regulations. That's really kicking off at the moment today in particular. And then the third strategy, reorganizing the world trade for tariffs and pulling back manufacturing and high-tech industries in the United States. All that setting the United States up for the golden age of America. And, of course, that's going to help the world big time because everybody else that we had running it was destroying us. And we were apparently indoctrinated to like it. That's the irony of it. They were indoctrinating us with the mainstream media to like it, the fact that they were destroying us. I don't know. It's a perverse outcome. But anyway, what else there? We got he now has a bat phone. Says, yeah, it's a bat phone. Yeah. No, it's a Superman phone. It's a Superman phone. All right, get that guy out. He's one of our community leaders. Get him out. All right, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. No, that's pretty funny. All right, so. Yeah. All right, so let's get back into it. This is going to be some key stuff coming up here, and we're going to get into the first video. So let's talk about that. And bam, bam, bam. Let's go.
Joining me now is White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining me.
All right, so what I want you to watch here is the last statement he says. The last statement he says, right? So Peter Navarro here, he's head advisor in the Economic Council, I believe. And he's this last statement he says is very important. So really focus on picking this up because it's a huge part of the tell here from the Trump administration.
Great to be with you, Maria.
I want to get your take on these deals that President Trump is doing and that you and your team are doing. But first, give us your reaction to now, Xi Jinping, thumping that chest, saying, oh, yeah, you're going there, we're going here, 125% on U.S. goods. How impactful is this going to be?
I love it. I'm going to talk a lot about China. Let me just say 90 deals in 90 days, biggest.
90 deals in 90 days, very important. 90 deals in 90 days. So that's all the ducks in a row. The world order's being reorganized. China's being relatively isolated. We know China's in negotiations with Vietnam today, trying to, do a bit of wiggle. Remember, Vietnam's a communist authoritarian country, so you remember to take that into account.
Broadest tax cut in American history.
So there's the tax cuts as well. We talked about these three-legged strategies, right? Tariffs and taxes are very important in that setup.
Should be driving the tape. That's what's going to be a bullish market. And if you're not long, you're going to get left behind. Now,
so the key words there, that's going to set up a bullish market. If you're not long, you're going to get left behind. I can't say it enough. You're not long, you're going to get left behind. So let's watch that one more time because this is really coming from one of the advisors to the president. This is pretty bullish.
Xi Jinping, thumping that chest, saying, oh, yeah, you're going there, we're going here, 125% on U.S. goods. How impactful is this going to be?
I love it. I'm going to talk a lot about China. Let me just say 90 deals in 90 days, biggest, broadest tax cut in American history. Should be driving the tape. That's what's going to be a bullish market. And if you're not long, you're going to get left behind. Now,
just think about that for a minute. So we're going to got 90 countries in 90 days. It's probably going to be more than that. We're going to get all this economic news coming out about all these deals. And the market's going to go, wow, fantastic, deal after deal after deal. Trump's winning, man. It's the art of the deal. It's boom, 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 boom. And, of course, what else? We're going to have tax cuts are going very well through the House and the Senate. Good news, economics, all the Main Street, Wall Street, all love it. Boom, 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 boom. It's playing out like absolute gold. And it's going to be awesome. And he's saying that is the main take. If you're not on the game, if you're not going long, you're going to miss out and you're going to be left behind. So that is the first little bit of alpha there. It is so cool to see this play out. And, it's pretty exciting. Now, you got to remember, Trump has some of the smartest people around him, as opposed to the Democrats, they have a bunch of idiots. Trump's got all these geniuses and all these smart people. And all on the right page, right? So very cool. He set up his whole cabinet, his whole presidency administration, very different from his first term. And now that he has a lot of experience and he found out how bad the Democrats and the other, deep staters in the Republican Party are, and here he's turned things around. So it's very clever. The other thing he's doing is he's monitoring all his initiatives that he's doing. So he's got in the White House, got all these initiatives being monitored and reported on. So no one's going to be undermining his campaign. Also, of course, what is he doing? Part of this three-legged strategy, a big part, he's shrinking the public sector dramatically, and he's moving it into the private sector. And so a lot of people in the public sector that are not there getting fired, getting released, and then the private sector is going to boom. And he's got all this money coming into the private sector. How much so far? $7 trillion US, and he's only been around for about 100 days. So this is huge. and it's going to be pretty epic. So you guys are in the right place, right time. I know we've come off a bit of a sting in the crypto market, but man, accumulate quality cryptos, have a good diversified portfolio in quality cryptos, and you will just laugh yourself silly in the next 6 to 9 months in particular. It's going to be pretty outstanding, and I'm pretty bullish about 26 as well, so kind of cool there. Now we will have little dips on the way, and so we'll see that, but this is going to be unlike, I think, anything we've ever seen before. It's going to be pretty exciting there. So kind of cool. That is the first video. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, the next one is kind of quite a long time, so I don't know how many of you will stick around for this, but this is the next level alpha. This is about as good as it gets. This is a long video with Anthony Pompliano in the Trump White House with a key person doing the crypto and policy. You're going to find more insights in this video than you will in just about anything out there. This is just hot off the press, and it is very insightful. So if you're really serious about crypto, well worth watching this video. So I hope you guys enjoy. Probably going to take a second to boot up because it's quite long, but we'll be streaming probably for at least the next hour as well. So this is really dropping some alpha in this one, and you're going to really enjoy the insights here. And it's going to give you a lot of confidence about where we are heading. So let's get into it. This is Anthony Pompliano. Let's go. Before we do that, let's have a few more comments in the chat there. Brian says, I'm just doing my job, says Brian. Wookie thinks, let's bring back Biden Wook's head is hurting. Yeah, we got the popcorn ready for this show. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get into it. A bit more of the magic. All right, so let's go.
Do you have a personal goal for the number of Bitcoin that the United States can have? I've heard 1 million thrown out there as a nice big round number.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of different senators and other folks on the Hill talk about specific numbers, but, I'd like it to be infinite. I want as much as we can possibly accumulate. And the reality is, I've told many people this, and especially journalists, is they say, well, is there an exact number? Well, no, not really, because, that's like saying how much gold do you want as a country? Anything else with intrinsic stored value, you want as much as you can possibly accumulate, and that's no different with Bitcoin.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Bo Hines. He's the executive director of the Crypto Council. Bo, I thought a great place to start this conversation is the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve obviously captured not only the attention of every American, but I think the world. And seeing the United States say, we're not going to sell the Bitcoin that we hold was a really big deal. Talk a little bit as to what were the conversations leading up to that? And then what is the plan moving forward?
Well, I think more generally, it speaks to President Trump's leadership in this space. He made it very clear on day 3 with an executive order that he was going to be the crypto president. And, that executive order basically outlined several different things. It created the interagency working group, in which I'm the executive director of. And then obviously we have our brilliant AI and crypto czar, David Sachs, who many folks are familiar with in the financial world, obviously with his VC success and everything else he's done in the business community. But this executive order created this working group. It also established some timelines that we had to hit. The first timeline was the 30-day landmark, which required these agencies to basically do an internal audit or review of everything they were touching inside the digital asset space, really looking over those rules and regulations that, oftentimes had been misguided, specifically under the Biden regime. So, we looked at those rules and regs, then we hit the 60-day landmark, which compelled the same interagency actors to provide a list of recommendations, things that they thought that they could do independently in order to deliver on the president's promise to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. And so now we have this 180-day landmark that's on the horizon in which we'll go through these recommendations, we'll comb through all the reports, and then we'll produce, a comprehensive piece of work that'll basically say this is what needs to happen inside of a regulatory framework for the United States to be the crypto capital of the world and promote innovation, allow digital asset firms to thrive here in the United States. And, pivoting to your question about the SBR, the president has made it very clear that we're going to be the Bitcoin superpower of the globe. He's said that repeatedly.
Sounds great.
So you can't get much better than that, can you? I mean, the crypto, this is coming from the guy working on it. Trump's serious about becoming the Bitcoin crypto capital of the world. It's going to be amazing. So let's continue on with this. So good.
David and I worked diligently with many others inside of the White House to craft what we thought was the best solution for the strategic Bitcoin reserve. And look, we wanted to recognize Bitcoin for being unique because it is. It's a commodity, not a security. It has intrinsic stored value. It has the immaculate conception, as David likes to say. And, the way that we set this up, we recognized it for what it is, which is being unique. And then we also had the digital assets national stockpile because really we wanted to encourage the innovation that's happening across other ecosystems in the space as well. But we wanted to harness Bitcoin for the American people. We view it as being in our long-term interest to hold on to this asset. We obviously have made it very clear that we want to acquire as much as we can get. I've said that repeatedly throughout my time on the speaking circuit over the course of the last few months. And look, at the end of the day, it stipulates that we have to acquire Bitcoin in budget-neutral ways that don't cost the taxpayer a dime. With that being said, I think that we have, as the president likes to say, many high IQ people working on these solutions, and we're going to have countless ideas on how we can accomplish this. And look, we have Secretary Lutnick at Commerce, we have Secretary Bessent at the Treasury, many other great actors inside the interagency working group, and we'll come together and flesh out some of these ideas and really get to the best solution. But we're very confident that we can do so, and we'll start doing that in short order.
Now,
so one of the key things around the market was a little disappointed with the fact that they talked about, potentially getting more Bitcoin and stuff like that, maybe more crypto using a budget neutral approach. But I mean, that leaves a couple of options, right? At least, right? It leaves some revenue options, potentially savings in other projects. So it can do savings and revenue. It could also to deal with the balance sheet. They could do some things with the balance sheet to get capital to buy more Bitcoin and crypto. And of course, there's also third-party options as well. Outside of the government that they could get other people to participate. So it's pretty exciting where the guys are going to head with this.
These ideas of acquiring more Bitcoin, I know that none of them have been decided on, but there are many that I think are somewhat obvious of, hey, you could revalue gold, sell it, move things over to Bitcoin. But I think that people drastically are underestimating maybe net new ideas. And so as you guys have been brainstorming, are there themes to things that you guys are thinking about? And, there's one thing to take American taxpayer dollars that are already somewhere within the U.S. government or on our balance sheet and kind of rearrange, right? Financial advisors all the time, they'll go and they'll rebalance their portfolio. That's kind of one whole theme. But then I've also seen Lutnick and others talk about this idea of, well, maybe there's external revenue that we can drive and be able to use that. And so how are you guys maybe from a framework standpoint thinking about, okay, what are the ways that we could go buy more Bitcoin? Well,
I think that Senator Lummis has really an interesting idea with the Bitcoin Act of 2025, which I know has taken the community by storm. But here, what you would do is you'd revalue the gold certificates that we currently have at Treasury. Most of which are valued, I think, around like $43 an ounce, which is,
a lot lower than what it's really worth.
Correct. Yeah. So now we're sitting at $3,100 an ounce with being the price of gold. And if you took that value, what you could do is use that extra funding in order to buy more Bitcoin that could be used for the reserve. But that's just one idea. And, that's currently circulating its way through Capitol Hill, and we'll see how many co-sponsors she can get and how she can pull her colleagues on board. But we're looking at many creative ways, whether it be from, tariffs, whether it be from something else. I mean, there's literally countless ways in which you can do this. And, I'll defer to, some of our members inside of the interagency working group to see what ideas they come up with inside of their own shops. But we'll look at everything. Everything's on the table. And like we've said, we want as much as we can get. So we're going to make sure that no stone is unturned as we start fleshing out some of these processes.
So this is from the government's point of view. So it's talking about the government accumulating more Bitcoin and crypto in the stockpile. But obviously Trump's overall strategy that I call the three-legged stool, that itself is going to boom crypto. And with all these tariff announcements and regulations and tax cuts and things like that, tax extensions, it's going to be absolutely epic. So it's winning across the board. It's going to be so good, so good.
Do you have a personal goal for the number of Bitcoin that the United States could have? I've heard 1 million thrown out there as a nice big round number.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of different senators and other folks on the Hill talk about specific numbers, but, I'd like it to be infinite. I want as much.
So it says infinite. Obviously, there's only 19.8 million Bitcoin at the moment. It's going to be 21 million, but, get the passion for getting as much as you can is huge. Of course, Michael Saylor's got about 500,000. So, most of the Bitcoins are going to have to be bought off the big individuals that own it, and of course the retail book that's been accumulating it for years, and we're ignored by a lot of state actors and institutions. So it's going to be pretty good payday for a lot of people holding Bitcoin, and it's a pretty good zone to try and pick some up if you're after some of that solid return, especially for retirement or whatever else you want to use it for.
As we can possibly accumulate. And the reality is, I've told many people this, and especially journalists, is they say, well, is there an exact number? Well, no, not really, because that's like saying how much gold do you want as a country? Anything else with intrinsic stored value, you want as much as you can possibly accumulate, and that's no different with Bitcoin.
Now, President Trump, he spoke at Bitcoin Nashville. He said he wanted to be the Bitcoin president. He wanted to create the Bitcoin superpower. He wanted to be the crypto capital. I mean, there's these really, really big, bold statements that I think people were surprised that him, of all people, but also just the president of the United States would say. You've spent time with him, the administration, people in the cabinet. What do you think his views on Bitcoin are, right? Like he obviously has hired a lot of people around him who have expertise and interest, and you guys have been working really hard on this and made a lot of progress already. But him personally, like, has he said anything to you about Bitcoin, or are there specific things that you think are worth sharing?
Well, first and foremost, he delivered on his promise that he made at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville on the campaign trail, which he was going to create the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've obviously done that now. And as we look at different ways to accumulate, I'm sure that he'll have, input as well. But the president, I think he's made it very clear that he loves Bitcoin. Moreover, he's made it very clear that he loves digital assets and he loves the innovation in this space. And so for us, our goal is to deliver on his wishes, which is to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to accomplish that. This is an industry that's been broadly beaten down and kicked down really over the course of the last decade and a half. More specifically under the Biden regime, they were victims of lawfare, really targeted unlike any other industry that's ever existed on planet Earth. And so for us, the president made it very clear at the first ever White House Crypto Summit to many of the industry players that were there that he wanted to basically eradicate anything that undergirded Operation Choke Point 2.0, which for your viewers was basically an attempt to prevent digital asset firms from interacting with institutional banks or players in the TradFi space. So, we're well on our way of doing that. And I'd be remiss not to mention some of the actors that have been instrumental in this in the first, 2.5 months of the administration. We have Hester Pierce over at the SEC, who's been absolutely phenomenal, just clearing the decks over there. We have Brian incoming at the CFTC, who loves the digital asset space, is going to be a fantastic actor. Look, with Secretary Besson at Treasury, Secretary Letnick at Commerce, this is the dream team for digital assets. And I think that, as we get through all of these hurdles and we establish a clear regulatory environment and a framework that allows people to operate, knowing what the rules are and who the actual regulators overseeing certain verticals in the industry are, you're going to see innovation unleashed in a way that we've never experienced before as it relates to this space. And I think it can actually truly revolutionize the global financial marketplace.
I used to always say that.
So there's a lot of innovation here, but on Pulse Chain, we have tons of innovation. It's huge. Like, we got such good devs doing DeFi, GameFi, crossovers. It's incredible. Webbing and everything. We've got so much stuff on Pulse Chain. It's crazy. In fact, I might do a video just on innovation on Pulse Chain. I think that's probably really due, and highlight some of the devs that are bringing that. We've got world-class devs developing stuff on the Pulse Chain. The other thing, of course, when we cover Titanex, we see a lot of the tokenomics there. Some of that is leading tokenomics in the world, and a lot of the Titanex projects. We've got Crypto Utah in the house, and they're continually innovating there. I'm just looking at one of the comments about Omnichain Inferno coming. This is really leading the way, and we've got quality DeFi 2.0 tokenomics, but they're leading into DeFi 3.0 tokenomics, right? Really advanced stuff. Using cross-chain bots, on-chain bots, web LPing, lots of other cool tokenomics around DAOs and multiple layer, time frames and all sorts of different tokenomics there. So it's pretty awesome as well. Thinking of another developer, we've got another developer in the house there. First Abdul, I'm here for the tech. A big shout out there. Got Ink Printer in the house. Let's move on with innovation. That's a good topic. I might do that. I think that's a really good one.
Bitcoiner will be president one day, but it'll just be somebody who becomes the president and they happen to own Bitcoin. No different than a president who owns equities, and they don't go and run on that platform. President Trump obviously did run on that as part of his platform. But what you're really highlighting is that the White House administration has been taken by storm by a bunch of Bitcoiners. And maybe they own Bitcoin and other digital assets, but these people fundamentally believe in this. And so I think a lot of the American people want to understand, what does this asset mean for me? Right? It's great that there's businesses in the industry. It's great that there's people who already hold it. But what's your message to the American people in terms of how they can actually interact with Bitcoin or digital assets and what that could do for them in their own personal lives on a day-to-day basis? Yeah,
I'll make it very simple. We've publicly said that we believe that Bitcoin is digital gold. And with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, we wanted to build a digital Fort Knox around that. And so I think for your viewers, and again, I'm not a financial advisor, and obviously, as we all know, the crypto market can be extremely volatile. So I would recommend that you consult an expert before investing in any category in this space. But with that being said, I would be viewing Bitcoin as gold. And how can you protect your own assets? How can you protect your value in the midst of other volatile markets? I think that's something that you should certainly be looking at investing into. The United States obviously has. We said that we don't want to sell any Bitcoin. We want to accumulate as much as we can get. I would follow our lead there. I think that we have the right mindset, and we've obviously prioritized this asset class. And, Bitcoin is the grandfather, right? And then you have a lot of different ecosystems that have developed in the space beyond that. And, we're proud of those builders and what they're attempting to accomplish too, just with the technology that's being produced. And that technology can be integrated into our institutional systems in a way that can make, the way that Americans interact with their financial lives very different than what we've ever seen before. It's almost like every other industry has had, periods of growth, except the financial system, just in terms of the technology that's there. I mean, you remember as a kid, we'd deal with like dial-up with the internet. I mean, the ways that the ways that we communicate as human beings has changed drastically over the course of the last 2 decades. And now, we look at our banking system and there's so much friction there. I mean, look at our current payment rails. Look at our systems that allow us to move money to one another. There's fees. There's lack of transparency. There's a time process that's obviously too long with the technology that currently exists. And blockchain technology and some of these technologies that are emerging out of the digital asset space will help revolutionize that system. It'll make things more transparent for Americans, more efficient, more effective. And that's something that we care deeply about and want to usher in.
So a real key point about that is the fact that you guys are already in crypto. You guys are already ahead of everybody else. Like if you go to talk about crypto with somebody, they're not going to know what you're talking about. They're going to think, this is a cuckoo guy come at me. But you're like, no, well, it's the opportunity of a lifetime. You can make mad gains. Instead of earning 3 to 5% in the bank, you can make that in an hour, right? So it's just, it is pretty different environment. So I really like that. And of course, the other big key thing out of that little statement was that US is, the government's leading the way. And this is going to add so much value pouring into crypto and Bitcoin. It's going to be insane. We got a couple of comments in the chat there. We got Bookie says, if Bitcoin is gold, then ETH must be silver. I like that one. That actually made sense, Bookie. That actually made sense. We got Ben in the house says, Fast Abdul, number one, move it and shake it on Polestar. Good to see you here, sir. And a big shout out there. And of course, Fast Abdul recently launching the 4th liquidity fork on Polestar. And I believe it has the biggest liquidity pool as well. So big shout out there. Nice. All right, let's get on with the show.
When the strategic Bitcoin reserve got announced, there was also a digital asset stockpile. And I think the people were trying to figure out what is the difference between these two things. You said earlier that Bitcoin is a unique asset. How are you guys looking at the rest of the industry and how the government is going to interact there?
Well, I think that the rest of the industry will be taken care of, one, with the interagency actors in the sense of shaping this regulatory framework, but two, with really 2 pieces of monumental legislation that the president's asked to be on his desk before August, which is stablecoin legislation, then we have market structure legislation. And what the
So take that key date there. So that he just told us August is the key date for that around stablecoin legislation and things like that. So that's really important. So we got July being a big deal, laying the foundation of the 3-legged strategy. And then we've got August here for the next sort of additional things happening around the crypto space, around stablecoins and other related regulations there. So this is really huge.
2 bills will do is provide the clarity that's necessary for folks to continue to develop and innovate here in the United States. Unfortunately, due to the lawfare and just reckless nature of our regulators over the course of the last few years, a lot of this innovation has gone offshore. And we want to make sure that we can repatriate that innovation back to the United States. And we want to make sure that these players, can absolutely harness the U.S. capital markets in a way that hasn't been done before as it pertains to digital assets. So, there's a lot of work to be done there, but we wanted to recognize those players too for everything that they've done in the face of headwinds. And now that we have the tailwinds at our back, I think it's high time that they're recognized as well. And so, for us, I think that we have a very unique opportunity, especially given the actors that I've mentioned before and the way that things are set up on Capitol Hill, to make monumental changes as it relates to this space and really usher in the golden age for digital assets, as the president said repeatedly.
So now we've got things layering upon layering upon layering. We've got the 3-legged stool strategy. This is the wider picture of what Trump's doing to make the golden age of America. We've now also got, obviously, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, the altcoin stockpile. This is going to feed capital in as leadership from the US government. Obviously, it's going to be followed up by all the states in the US governments, which are scrambling to get crypto allocations through their governments. And of course, then we've got, obviously, the rest of the sovereign states around the world going to clamor in as well. We've also got institutions clamoring in too. We've got the economic vehicles to do it through ETFs and other mechanisms. And here now we've got this next layer as well around innovation and regulation, getting rid of lawfare. So ushering in a whole ton of booming, legitimizing the big players in crypto and booming the innovation in the space. And DeFi, we saw earlier, taking over CeFi. And of course, CeFi also taking over TradeFi with a centralized exchange taking over TradeFi with stocks and other things offering. So you can see where the picture's going. It's only one way, and it's up, and it's going to be glorious. And he said, not just the golden age of America, but the golden age of crypto. This is getting exciting, guys. This is getting exciting. And we've already got key dates, July, August. We're looking good for the next couple of months. Things are going to be pretty amazing. So get excited, that's for sure.
I've talked to a lot of the different teams kind of outside of Bitcoin, but in the crypto industry. And it seems like there's really two different kind of thought processes. There's one which is this is a global phenomenon and all of the assets are similar. They use similar technologies. They're on public blockchains. But there's another thought process, which is there's a difference between the ones that are built in America and the ones that are built outside of America. How are you guys thinking through, there's an America First agenda for the administration more generally, but also I think that there's this belief that technology and innovation is a key component to American kind of success on the global stage. And so it's a pretty complex situation, but how are you guys thinking through that?
Well, I think that the players that have developed frameworks outside of the United States will ultimately want to be participants here. And so I think that the regulatory clarity will allow them to integrate in the United States and start building more systems here. Moreover, I think that, we want to make sure that we're leading the globe just in terms of this technological innovation as it relates to digital assets. And so we want to welcome those folks back to the U.S. I mean, I think a lot of the great technology that's been developed here has been from U.S. participants that have gone offshore due to the lack of regulatory clarity that existed for so long. And that's going to change in short order. So my message to those folks is, one, welcome home. We're excited to have you back. And two, we look forward to the United States leading the charge in terms of the technological revolution as it relates to the digital finance space.
I just love this language, right? We've moved from lawfare and tyranny from the Democrats and the Biden administration and whoever is running that show. And now we've got warm, embracing arms from the Trump administration with guys that are in there that are like us and they want the best of the best. I mean, this is like a dream run for crypto. It is getting crazy.
More generally. So, look, we'll make sure that we're operating delicately in a sense of recognizing what's happening offshore and onshore. But we have blinders on right now just to create the best regulatory environment that could possibly exist for innovators in this space. And that's one thing that the president's made very clear. And you've obviously seen our interagency actors move very quickly and expeditiously to get that done.
The speed is breathtaking, right? I mean, I think that people knew there's a little bit more planning this time versus maybe the first term. But I think that people did not expect to see the results so quickly. And I think that's kudos to you, the rest of the team, and the president himself. But let's talk about stable coins. That seems to be one of the big focuses right now for politicians across both sides of the aisle. I think that there's some agreement, and then there's also a lot of disagreement as to what that framework's going to look like. The U.S. dollar is a very important part of the U.S. economy and kind of our success on that global stage. But there's new technology, and a lot of the success of the U.S. dollar on these blockchain rails are coming from the private sector rather than the public sector. And so how are you guys maybe approaching stable coins, that legislation, and getting some regulatory clarity there so that the private sector actually knows what they can and cannot do?
Well, at the beginning of that question, you mentioned the speed in which we're operating, and I'd say that's a testament to the president's leadership, along with our AI and crypto czar, David Sachs. I mean, look, I think we're testing the hypothesis for the first time about what happens when you take private sector actors, their leaders in their particular fields, and inject them into government, right? What happens is you start creating much more efficient systems. And that's truly a testament to President Trump and the folks that he's brought into this administration. I think that should be, something that stands going forward as we start thinking about how do we operate this country in a way that benefits the American people more generally. And in regard to stablecoin legislation, we understand how important this is just for U.S. dollar global dominance. We understand how important it is for, altering the ways in which our system works and achieving new payment rails that are more efficient and can allow for the expeditious transfer of asset classes. And this gets us into a broader conversation about what can be done more generally down the road as you start talking about tokenization of public securities and things of that matter. So We are very keen on helping our colleagues on the Hill usher this through. And, I think that we have phenomenal actors up there. You look at Chairman Hill in the House Financial Services Committee. You look at Chairman Tim Scott at Senate Banking. I mean, they both passed stablecoin legislation out of their respective committees with bipartisan votes. This is a truly meaningful and monumental step for them. And I think that what honestly was missed on a lot of folks in the industry was at the beginning of this administration, David went up to Capitol Hill and did a joint press conference with both chairmen where they were talking about creating the bicameral working group on digital assets. And, that was just such a recognition of this industry and what they've been able to build in the midst of a lot of turmoil over the course of the last decade. This was both chambers coming together saying, we're going to pass meaningful legislation as it relates to the space and provide the clarity that the actors need to innovate and thrive here in the United States. And now they're well on their way of doing that. And Stables has been the first to move, but we'll have market structure shortly thereafter. In terms of sequencing, we'll see what the chairman decide to do there. But
that's really important. So we're going to stable coins. We're going to get market structure changes. Oh, this is great. This is these guys are doing the full overhaul. You're taking your car in, you're getting the whole thing just pulled apart, put back together again, and you might have walked in, drove in with a beat down Buick or something. You're gonna drive out with a flash, I don't know, Ferrari, Rolls Royce, whatever your choice is. It's going to be pretty exciting.
We've made it very clear from the White House that we would like to see both pieces of legislation on the president's desk by August. And as we work towards the 180-day report, that hopefully runs parallel to that timeline where we can have a completely new and innovative system and regulatory framework that's built by August, and we can start the implementation phase. One thing that I've said is, we've had to start with the demolition phase, basically rescinding all of these nasty regulations that the Biden administration implemented, which stifled growth. And then now we have the constructive phase, which is happening on Capitol Hill, and what we're doing with rule guidance and all sorts of things from interagency actors. And then we'll have the implementation stage, which, for us, we want to integrate these technologies into the institutional banking system, and we want the traditional financial players to welcome in this innovation. I think that they will in short order.
My goodness, this is an unbelievably, insanely fantastic. It's like just a dream come true. I mean, the way he's talking is just like, my God, common sense. Not just common sense, but just like fully on board. It's like a football team on the field just won the Super Bowl or something. It's just like just screaming and shouting. That's how good this is, guys. This is so, so good. You don't get any better than this. Is the holy grail of the outcome. And man, oh man, that's going to be exciting. So bring it on. It's going to be cool.
How do you think this affects the U.S. dollar, global dominance of that dollar, adoption of that dollar? On one hand, I think people, including myself, when I first got into Bitcoin, I was like, oh man, this is going to be competitive with the dollar. If Bitcoin is successful, that might not be good for the U.S. I think I've changed my mind on that now. And it looks like actually this technology is helping to further extend the dollar. Have you guys thought through, what are the pros and cons of the technology and the industry actually being successful?
Well, yeah, I mean, the way in which it changes payment rails and how quickly you can move money, people are naturally going to want to have a safe harbor in the U.S. dollar, and that's good for the United States. And so the more dollars that are spreading globally throughout different economies and other regions is fantastic for us. And I think that stablecoin legislation allows us to do that. It also structures things in a way that provides the necessary oversight to ensure that consumers are protected. And I think that's one thing that's often overlooked. But here, once you have that regulatory clarity, that will be established, and it'll welcome other players internationally to investing in U.S. Treasuries, which is phenomenal for us and great for our economy and great for the American people.
Now, there are foreign stablecoin issuers like Tether. There's domestic ones like Circle. I think that a lot of these companies, they have different approaches, right? On one hand, if I had to generalize, it's not perfect, but if I generalize, I think Tether is much more focused on the emerging markets and really kind of driving that dollar adoption globally. And I always joke with their team, I say, you got a pretty good product that you're selling. A lot of people want dollars, right? It's got product market fit. Now you just got to go figure out all the infrastructure. And it's very difficult because you've got to go, and in many cases, they're building infrastructure on the ground in very hard kind of remote regions. And they're doing a lot of great work there. Circle, on the other hand, I think has done a really good job of trying to build more traditional financial connectivity and say, hey, let's go on the other side here in the United States and go find that. And it's not a perfect, kind of black and white comparison, but I do feel like different companies that are using these stablecoins have different approaches. And so can you talk through a little bit as to, you mentioned earlier, the traditional financial institutions getting into the game and participating, but it also feels like in a weird way, crypto in general has been a bottoms-up adoption story, right? Usually the technology goes from the military in the country, and it's the people that are last. Here, the U.S. now is in the game, but the U.S. was kind of last, right? It was the individuals first and the financial institutions, and then the countries. And so how do you see, stablecoins in particular, like who are they helping? Or is it just, no, actually anyone who wants dollars, stablecoins are effectively valuable to them?
Well, I think they help everybody because they change the way in which our financial payment rails work. They allow people to move in and out of asset classes in a much more expeditious way. And so, this can be huge for our institutional players in the traditional finance space as their consumers are able to move money more effectively and efficiently. In terms of how it affects the crypto industry, well, the same principle applies. If you can get in and out of different asset classes at a faster pace, that helps the market move along in a much more effective way and in a much less friction environment. So, for us, it's about decreasing friction. It's about increasing the expeditious way in which people can interact with their finances. And I think that stablecoins really helps with that. And sure, there's players that have different strategies in the sense of how they operate. But for us, our main objective is just to create marketplace competition here in the United States. That drives innovation. It drives growth. The digital asset space is no different. And so we'll start to see these players compete under a new regulatory framework. But, there's certain guidelines that exist in both the Stables Act and the Genius Act that I think are really healthy for innovation. Making sure that you're one-to-one backed, having those audits that are there. These are things that will protect the U.S. consumer and consumers abroad that are investing in U.S. treasuries. But at the end of the day, I think everyone will benefit from this. And I think it's a very positive thing because it's not very often that's the case.
I was just going to say, that's almost never the case.
Usually there's a loser. And I think with digital assets, there's really not. And I think that's a testament to how we're seeing, the bipartisan nature around this forum. And that's one really fun thing about my job in this building is I'm working on something that I think Democrats and Republicans can come together on and say, like, this is absolutely imperative for the United States to just lead the charge in terms of digital asset, financial, technological innovation. And I think that we're doing that. And I think that, the first few votes that we've seen out of committee have proven that. And now we just have to continue to push it along.
One of the things
I just want to make a point. Anthony Pompliano, the guy on the left there, the host that's doing the interview, he reiterated the point I made earlier is that most of the people that are in Bitcoin and the crypto are the retail. They're in there. There are obviously big players, individuals, and some institutions that are been around the crypto for a while. But actually, a lot of them hold the crypto, hold the Bitcoin, and now you've got these other players coming out of the top, institutions, sovereign states that are coming in now. And so, if you're in the retail book, you're holding that Bitcoin. Why would you sell it? It's these guys are coming in. They're going to buy it. They're going to push the price up. The less people that sell, the higher the price is going to go. All things equal. So this is a wonderful gift. And if you think that Bitcoin at the moment it's still relatively cheap at 84K. I mean, Michael Saylor is continuing to buy. He'll be buying it as it goes higher and higher because he's expecting Bitcoin around 13 trillion on his base case in 2045. So he's just going to be buying at least for as long as I can imagine. Leveraging his asset base and issuing more lines of credit to do that, he's going to be doing it. So it's pretty crazy. So congratulations to all of you guys because you're in already. You're in like Flynn, and time to accumulate a bit more perhaps.
I always ask people is you sit in a very unique seat because you probably hear a lot of the support and you also hear a lot of the criticism as well. Are the critics right about anything? Do they have anything that you're like, you know what, actually, I do agree that that's a problem right now. And here's what we're doing to mitigate it or something. But like, how do you think about the critiques that are coming? There's the media. There's plenty of people who just don't like crypto or don't like this technology. And I think also there's a lot of people who are saying, hey, there's a price movement to this thing. And so people are making and losing money every single day on in a market. And they have criticisms as well. And so how do you think about, maybe where there's areas of opportunity for crypto, but really the critics are pointing out where those areas are?
Well, I'd say that most of the naysayers I certainly don't agree with. In terms of the technological advances that can be made in the global financial system with the adoption of the technology that's emerging out of the space, it's hard to make an argument against that. It's hard to make an argument that our current payment rails and our institutional banking system is a little bit archaic in the way that it operates. But, more generally, I think that as you usher in these technological changes, you'll start to see a lot of minds change very quickly when they start to see the real impact of how it affects them in their everyday lives as they interact with their own finances. And so, for us, I'd be hard pressed to believe you're going to have the same naysayers out there once this regulatory framework is established. And, I think that one of the biggest problems is that there's just an educational gap. there's a lot of folks that haven't interacted with crypto before. In government, there's a rule, an ethics rule that prevents actors inside of certain agencies from actually being able to tangibly interact with digital assets on a day-to-day basis, even on a small scale. So that creates an educational hurdle for us more generally, in a sense of just helping people understand what this is, how it feels, right? Your biggest advocates for digital assets are people that own them because they have experience interacting with different asset classes and the technology itself. And so, I think that as you start to see more people interact with the industry, there will be broader adoption in very short order because the technology is there and it'll usher in the change that's needed.
You bring up a really interesting point. I've seen proposals where, hey, maybe politicians shouldn't be able to legislate over certain industries unless they've got experience or they have certain people that advise them, or maybe they have to take a test, right? Do they understand some basic components of it? Using the technology, though, is a whole different game. And it'd be almost like trying to talk about, maybe ChatGPT, but never having asked it a question or something, right? And so, do you think that there is some pathway there where within the ethics rules, you could have, a tutorial day or something where you just say, hey, look, just sit down and you're going to send, $5 from one wallet to another. Now try to do that with your bank and see how much faster that is, right?
No,
are there things like that could happen?
I definitely think so. And look, these are all things that we'll end up talking to our interagency working group about how do we make these rule changes that honestly aren't even so drastic that they should, cause people to be appalled. This is something more or less, how do you allow people to interact with new technology so that they can actually understand it? And that would help us, a lot on Capitol Hill as we're educating members as well. But thankfully we have fantastic leadership there with the folks that truly get it. And, I'd again be remiss not to even thank Chairman Brian Stile, who's the subcommittee chair of digital assets in the House. He's done a phenomenal job. You have Senator Lummis, who's, a Bitcoin champion, and we absolutely love her.
The laser eyes on
That's
X.
right. That's right. And then Senator Haggerty's doing a great job in the Senate. So they're really assisting in terms of educating the members. But yeah, there's certainly things you can do, whether it be workshops, whether it be, changing some rules just to allow people to interact with technology on a small scale. I think we can definitely accomplish that.
One of the things that we've seen in the private sector is if somebody does something innovative, usually they start getting phone calls from other people who say, what'd you do? How'd you do it? And should I do the same thing? Have you guys been fielding calls from foreign governments or people outside the United States that are saying, why'd you set up the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve or the digital asset stockpile? And how did you do it? How did you think about certain things? We're thinking about it as well.
Are you looking for a simple way to earn Bitcoin rewards every single day? At Simple Mining, we help people mine Bitcoin, even if you're brand new. We're a vertically integrated Bitcoin mining company based in Cedar Falls, Iowa, offering a premium white glove hosting service. You'll even have a custom,
which is obviously to make the United States the crypto capital of the globe and to welcome in this innovation, the digital assets industry. And so, we owe it to the American people to deliver to them first. And I'm sure that other countries will be chasing us as we continue to push forward and do that and welcome in this technological innovation. But, I'm just extremely, extremely pleased that we have a president that truly is the crypto president that's welcoming in these changes. And I think you'll see other world leaders follow suit very quickly.
My free idea for you, which you kind of get what you pay for, is you should put a national scoreboard for every country how much Bitcoin they own in the Oval Office, and I think we'll have a lot more Bitcoin at the end of the term if he stands and just looks at it all day long. But I do think that there is some competitive nature, but also collaboration, right? We know that countries like El Salvador and others have been buying or holding Bitcoin, and it feels like the United States stepping in is kind of a breakthrough moment. But do you think that there is some sort of race to see, hey, who has the most? Are there geopolitical, strategic reasons why we want to have the most, or anything that you guys have talked about on that front?
Well, with any asset of value, there's certainly going to be a race to see who can accumulate the most. And I think that we certainly understand that as we're considering the different pathways that we can acquire more in budget neutral ways. And so, I'm very confident in this working group. I know that people are desperate to hear about what's going to be the first action that you take regarding this accumulation process. But we want to make sure that we're taking the best action as well. And so that takes a little bit of time to flesh out, but I think people will be very, very pleased with how quickly that we move. As David likes to say, with everything we've done, whether it be with AI or crypto, we're moving at tech speed. It's like we're a startup in this building. And that's truly a lot of fun because it gives us the flexibility that we need in order to accomplish things that benefit the American people. And, we'll continue moving this along quite quickly.
There's been a big rollback on the regulatory side, and also I would even say on the law enforcement side, where you've seen the DOJ come out and say, hey, we're going to abandon maybe the previous approach. If you still break the rules, you're going to get in trouble, but there's kind of a different approach to the industry. The SEC, we have a new chief that has recently been put into place there. And it feels like even across agencies where maybe there wasn't employee turnover, there's just been kind of a complete tone shift. I think that comes from the top. But talk about maybe what's happening there, and do you expect that just to be a complete tailwind for the industry? Or is there some nuance here that people should be paying attention to?
No, I would expect it to be a complete tailwind for the industry. I think that all the actors that we have at the relevant agencies are pro-digital asset innovation. And they're welcoming folks to come in and pitch ideas. They want to hear from industry about ways in which they can do better in order to streamline growth and innovation. Chairman Atkins.
That could be a big opportunity for people in Pulse Chain and other related projects to do that, to hit them up. So if you're somebody in a position that you feel like you can do that, that's definitely so we could edge ourselves into that. It looks just about taking an action, right? So kind of cool. If you're in that city, maybe that's an easy thing for you to do. It could be pretty cool. There's an opportunity.
Chairman Atkins is going to be phenomenal for digital assets as well, and then Hester over there at the SEC. Brian will be just enormously helpful at the CFTC as this regulatory clarity takes shape. But one thing that we've done, we've taken it upon our office is, I've probably had no less than 150 meetings with industry folks over the course of the last 2.5 months. And not just with Goliaths. We're talking to startups. We're talking to folks that, are currently in a building process, folks that are testing new ideas. Because we want to hear from everybody, and we want to know what challenges they're facing in regards to their innovative steps. And so, this allows us to actually, again, engage in this educational conversation, because I've really taken it upon myself to listen to experts in their particular verticals in this space, be able to dissect that information, and then translate it into something that's more palatable for folks that maybe don't understand digital assets as well as the players do in the industry. But look, I'm very keen on the idea that industry tends to know best. They live, breathe, and sleep this stuff every day. And so the more that we can absorb from them in terms of information and then translate that into action from a governmental side, that's what allows us to get to the best outcome. And I truly believe that.
Most people who touch financial markets, I think the general playbook is, hey, let me go make a lot of money. And then once I get older, then I'll think about maybe serving my country in some sort of leadership position or politics, et cetera. The people that I've interacted with the administration, it's not that there's a ton of young people. It's not that there's a ton of, wise people. There's a very big, I think, mix between that. You're one of the younger people who have come into the administration. I think you're very familiar with the technology. You have colleagues who maybe have a lot more experience in terms of dealing with, moments of crisis or some sort of, edge case or nuance of financial markets. And so how do you guys work through these things where people are bringing different things to the table? You mentioned many times these interagency kind of working group, and even that, right? There's different expertise. There's different kind of experiences that are showing up to the table. And so on one hand, that could be very helpful. On the other hand, there's a lot of people showing up with very different ideas as kind of how the world should look moving forward. And so maybe talk through how are decisions actually getting made and what's kind of happening behind the curtain, if you will.
Well, I think it's a fantastic thing to have actors with experience. And I think it's also a fantastic thing to have, actors with new and innovative ideas. And I think the president's done a phenomenal job of formulating a team that's comprised of both. And so, for us, we're able to bounce ideas off of each other. And, I'll call them, more of the gray hairs here can tell us.
Wise is the word I chose.
They can tell us whether or not those things will be helpful or useful based on their past experiences. But the one thing that is genuinely true across the board is all of the actors the president has brought together, at least in the financial space, agree that digital assets and moreover the technology that's emerging from this space is absolutely crucial for the United States to adopt. And so for us, it's about finding, what the right landing spot is. But we want to continue to usher this innovation along. And I think that, being able to pick up the phone and call David, who understands the space inside and out, just from a business perspective and VC perspective, is extremely helpful. For me, I started trading Bitcoin back in 2013, 2014, and some other asset classes back in the Wild West. And so I've seen things too from a different perspective, just from a retail side. And I think that, as all of this information converges and comes together and these minds meet, it allows us to make the best decisions for the United States and for the consumer more generally.
I loved how he picked on VCs. So we're talking about all these other actors, institutions, sovereign state funds and sovereign states, United States. I mean, everybody's jumping on board. But you also got VC capital is going to start flowing even more with clarity around regulation, innovation. So it's going to be huge. Stablecoin policy implementation. It's going to be a crazy amount of money is going to be flowing. And meanwhile, while Trump's doing the laying his three-legged stool strategy out, it's just boom town. It's just going to be insane, guys. It's going to be insane.
First hear about this?
So I played my freshman year at North Carolina State. I was a football player, and I played in the Bitcoin Bowl in St. Petersburg. And that sparked my interest in crypto. I ended up buying my first Bitcoin shortly thereafter. And it's something that's had a special place in my heart for a long time. Ever since then, I continue to be an active participant just from a trading perspective on the retail side of things. And I've been able to watch the industry evolve and change quite drastically over the course of the last decade. But it's extremely exciting to know that we have other folks that feel the same way as I do inside of this building about this industry, understand the value of Bitcoin, the value of these other digital assets, and what they bring to the financial system. And so we just need to capitalize on that. And that's something that the president certainly understands and is keen on doing.
You're talking about kind of the retail adoption story, which I think is a very important part of this. We now see Wall Street kind of salivating over participating. And I joke with my friends who work at these larger organizations, and I say part of it's probably because there's a lot of potential customers here. There's a lot of potential revenue that they can go and bring into these businesses and kind of create an entirely new business line, right? And that's very exciting to them. But there's been a lot of rules that haven't let them actually participate. We're starting to see some of that stuff either get clarity or get rolled back. And so how much of this is the retail story moving forward and, kind of the assets people can go buy on an exchange and they can hold it or trade it and, kind of use it to buy things versus there's a lot of what I call like the background, nuance of financial plumbing, which you and I could sit here and try to talk about and people fall asleep about. But
hey, if you guys are enjoying the show, don't forget to get on X and repost the show live. People can watch it from this point onwards and also from the beginning. There has been so much good stuff in the show. Honestly, we're looking at the big picture today. Tomorrow, we're going to be zooming in on pump tires. We're going to be covering that tomorrow. So there's lots of cool stuff we're going to be doing on the show. And hopefully everyone's going to have a great crypto education as well as myself. I absolutely enjoy this. So yeah, share that around, repost it now. And get that out, send it around. That's for sure. And let's get going. We've still got about half an hour left on this awesome interview. This is hot off the press. Just came out from Anthony Pompliano. So you're hearing the latest and greatest. And this is all part of the secret strategy of Trump to pump crypto. It is bullish. So get in there, folks, and share it around.
Really important because ultimately that is how people are able to transact. That's how these large financial institutions are able to operate on a day-to-day basis. Like, what are you seeing on that back end side that maybe is boring to most people, but is really, really important to financial markets?
Yeah, I think that there are different ecosystems that touch the consumer in different ways, some of which are subliminal and, most consumers wouldn't recognize. But this kind of goes back to the conversation we were having about an archaic banking system, right? The ways in which people move money, they've just accepted for a long time, whether it be fees, whether it be the friction that's involved. The bank might stop a payment and say, we're going to review this, whatever it is. We want to have the necessary security, and that's important, but we also want to make sure that Americans can move their money efficiently. And, I think part of this, in a sense, is integrating these technologies into the institutional banking systems in a way that allow for streamlined transactions, the privacy that might be necessary for some Americans, and the security element as well. And those things are not mutually exclusive of one another. I think they can all be combined. But the only space that's combined these things really is the digital asset space. And this comes out of blockchain technology. And there's all sorts of development happening around this technology. There's people that are building on different platforms in different ecosystems, continually updating and making these changes that undergird all three things that I've discussed and laid out. And so, for us, I think that the institutional players recognize just how powerful these systems are. Now, they're going to certainly want to find ways to plug these into their ecosystems in ways that benefit their business. But I think that's certainly going to happen, and it's going to happen very quickly. And so I think that the way that Americans interact with their everyday financial lives now will look completely different over the course of the next decade. My son, who will never experience dial-up like we did at a point in our lives.
Your mom calling, they're telling, hey, get on.
For the older people over, 35, you might remember dial-up. I don't know. That was a crazy time, right? In fact, we in the Discord the other day, we played the dial-up video on YouTube. If you haven't remember what dial-up and connecting to net was like, it's a pretty hilarious sound. So definitely encourage you to go on YouTube and look out for dial-up, just if you haven't heard that, especially if you're maybe under 40, 35, something like that. Definitely well worth it. It's hilarious what we had to go through to connect to the internet in the early days. Pretty crazy, like I think it was the 90s, was it? Something like that. So yeah, crazy.
Oh, if I need to use the phone.
I think that he'll never experience a time in which it might take him 3 or 4 days to move money to somebody, you know? And there are instances where that still happens, especially with larger transactions. He'll never experience the idea of what it's like to send money, not know where it is, and just hope that it promulgates to the place that you're sending it, right? I mean, look, the transparency that the technology in this space provides is absolutely instrumental. And I think the faster that we can adopt it, the better off we'll be.
Talk about tokenization, which I think is a whole nother part.
So that was what Brennan raised, the idea of no tax on crypto. We may see stuff around that, so we'll probably look at that one too. Very true, though. It was talked about, so we'll follow up on that one.
We now see some of these large financial institutions actually doing things. Because I think people talk for like a decade, right? It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Now we actually see the Black Rocks and many others launching products, and we'll see if they're successful or not, or if they're popular. But that does feel like a huge part of where this technology can be applied, that at least the large financial institutions are excited about. And so have you guys gotten to thinking through any of that stuff yet?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are all things that we're going to address in the 180-day report. I mean, this is going to be very comprehensive. You can almost
like a big book report.
You can almost consider it a book, not even a book report. I think this will end up being a book, but I think that it'll provide clarity on many aspects of this space, whether it be from tokenization to staking, all sorts of things. So, you know, I know that people are very keen to get answers immediately, but for us, we want to make sure that the answers that we're providing are correct and can be implemented accordingly. And so, you know, we're working through that. But look, if we can get all of this accomplished by August, I think that would be a tremendous success. And I think it would be a derelict of duty from our office if we don't. We have a mandate from the president to deliver very quickly, and we plan on doing that.
Tariffs are the talk of every town, I think, right now. It seems like it changes every 5 minutes in terms of these high stakes geopolitical negotiations. And America is definitely being tough, I think, with a lot of these countries. But gold was not tariffed, and neither was Bitcoin. And I think that a lot of the gold movement leading up to the tariffs were people saying, hey, these may be part of these tariffs, and so we should probably get the gold from London or other places around the world, bring it back to the United States, bring it to New York and elsewhere. How do you think about these assets playing in this global financial system, which we all participate in? And when you have tariffs or other kind of changes in global trade, these assets are kind of operating outside the system a little bit.
Sure.
But again, the United States still is participating. And so it's this very weird kind of dichotomy that we're living through. And so how do you guys look at these assets, given that it actually has been designated as unique and outside of kind of the tariffed global economy?
Well, I mean, gold has acted as a safe harbor for folks for quite a long time.
Thousands of years.
Thousands of years. And I think that for the next few thousand years, I think Bitcoin will behave very similarly to gold. And so, yes, they do kind of exist outside of this current financial framework that's under strict scrutiny, to say the least, at the moment. And one thing I'll say about the president, we've just come through a tremendous week in a sense of him leveling the playing field for the United States, as we've been taken advantage of and abused for quite some time over the course of the last several decades. And he's the only president that's had the courage to stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the American people. I'm going to deliver for Main Street, not just Wall Street. But at the end of the day, both Main Street and Wall Street are going to benefit from this because it makes our country stronger. And
so that's something I said earlier was, Main Street and Wall Street are all going to do well. Obviously, Wall Street has been kind of the focus. Main Street was deserted, particularly a lot of the red states were just left to fall as manufacturing left 7 million jobs since 1970s. I mean, it'd been crazy. Of course, the Democrat states on the coast thrived. And the high area services and other owners, like owners of capital, but it was a big deal. And now Trump's focusing on Main Street, focusing on the coal workers through to the car manufacturers. He is really this is such a fundamental change. But the biggest thing, of course, Trump is up against the whole system, all the interest groups and everything like that, and he's just pushing it all aside and getting everybody aligned, making an alliance between, I would say, moderate Democrats through to conservatives, and ushering in a new age for America. It's pretty amazing leadership there.
I'm just extremely proud to work for a man that has the courage to stand up and do that.
I've seen members of the Trump family talk about their family interest originally in crypto, and kind of where they actually got introduced to it and started to learn about it was there was a lot of debanking that was going on. And it feels like that experience is not unique to them. There was a lot of people, especially in the crypto industry, that went through this, whether it was their company or personally. Hopefully that's behind us. And I think a lot of the changes in regulation are going to allow for kind of different treatment from these organizations.
Funny that they bring up debanking. Obviously, in the UK, it was a big deal with Nigel Farage, and here in New Zealand, we're having people that are being debanked as well, because we still have, progressives running infiltrated through our whole system, and they're a cancer to it, right? Because they're just removing freedoms. They're putting political ideology over people's justice. It is horrific. It's horrific. And but in the US, we've got this opening new hope for common sense, for normal justice, and all that sort of stuff. So, really, really interesting. They brought debanking up, which is a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. It's a way of getting rid of people that you oppose rather than a level playing field. So, pretty cool.
But talk a little bit as to how do you go to these people who've been burnt by government or burnt by these large organizations and say, this time is different, right? How do you reestablish that trust? And you guys are doing a great job, I think, of communicating the message. But I got to imagine there's still a lot of people who, it's like, I'm here from the government and I'm going to help, or I'm going to improve things. Talk just about the relationship building and the trust that you need to kind of establish in order to have an impact in an industry like this.
Yeah, well, I think that the only reason that there's trepidation, and really the only reason that we have to be having these conversations, is because government took bad action first, right? And so now it has to be completely unwinded in some capacity. So that's what we're working on. And then we can actually start having constructive conversations about how do we build things here. And those are basically running in parallel right now with the legislative priorities and obviously what we're doing within our agency. But, there's certainly still trepidation from folks in industry that, experience walking into the SEC, pitching in ideas. They sit there and write the Wells notice at the same time they're there. By the time you get out of the elevator, you're being targeted. So,
like your ticket out of the building.
Correct. Yeah. And what I'd say is this is a complete sea change in the way that this administration views the digital asset space. We want to hear from folks that have new and innovative ideas. And I'm speaking for all of interagency at this point, because we're having these conversations with the working group. They want you to come in. They want you to tell them what you want to do here, and see if basically they can help you, whether it be through offering guidance, whether it be through offering no action letters, whatever it is. And, I don't speak on behalf of these agencies, but what I can tell you is that, they're begging us to encourage people from industry to come in and talk about what they want to do here in the United States so that they can help usher along and support those efforts. And I think that's extremely refreshing for many people. And I think very slowly, we're getting to the point where we're building back that trust with industry. And, ultimately, this undergirds the process to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. And we're going to get there. I promise you.
There's a lot of integration of technologies that seem to be on the horizon. So we have, artificial intelligence, there's AI agents, there's robotics, there's humanoids, there's all these different kind of exciting technologies. And then there's crypto. And I think historically, these things were very fragmented. They were very different. I always think about, if you put on your LinkedIn or on your X bio, right? You'd be like, I'm a crypto investor, or I'm an AI investor, or I'm an AI entrepreneur, or a crypto entrepreneur. Now, though, it feels like they're merging, and you sit in a very unique seat because you, David Sachs, have this purview over really innovative technologies. And I know you're a little bit more focused on the crypto side, but it does feel like people who are building these AI agents are starting to say, well, maybe.
So just as a backdrop, David Sachs is the AI and crypto czar. So he's doing both across both areas there. Hence the separation for this guy.
The actual legacy banking system doesn't work, right? There is no automated payments. And so I need to use stable coins, or I need to use something like Bitcoin. And so how do you try to predict maybe where the world's going a little bit, or think about the rules that you're creating today? The world could look very, very different, 5 years from now, and be able to adapt those rules for that future.
Well, I'll say this too. I think that the institutional players in the financial space are also very adaptive. And I think that, they have a lot of smart people in their buildings thinking about ways in which they can integrate these new technologies. And so just like any other industry, you're going to see spaces evolve. And I think that, honestly, our financial system has been a little bit blinded to a lot of the innovations occurring around them. And then now this is a really good push in the right direction in order to change and make things more streamlined and really effective for their consumers. But there certainly is an integration with crypto and AI, and there's crossover with blockchain technology and all of these sorts of things. And I'm very fortunate. My mandate here is to stay focused to deliver on the president's wishes as it relates to the digital asset space. But I have phenomenal colleagues working on AI, especially in the Office of Science and Technology Policy here in the White House. You have Michael Kratsios, who's the director, a brilliant guy. You have Siram, who's the AI senior advisor, and then obviously David there as well. So these folks certainly understand what's happening, where the integration is, and where these two things converge. And so we'll continue to flesh out those conversations as part of the implementation phase that we'll get into in short order after this demolition and reconstruction.
When I look online, I think that there's really two different information sources. There is what I would consider kind of more traditional coverage of crypto, finance, AI, and then there's memes. And one of the things that always cracks me up is sometimes the memes, they're generalizations, but they have a really, really big hint of truth to them. And one of the memes that seems to have taken hold in the crypto industry is that Baron Trump is a huge part of, so much of the policy and the interest and stuff in crypto. Regardless of whether Barron is actually involved or not, talk a little bit about some of the viewpoints of externally. People are realizing, hey, the administration's serious about this, right? That there is a real effort, not just to create the rules, not just to make sure that the industry is treated fairly, but there's a desire that this can actually help people. And I think that maybe is the thing that, as I've talked to people in the administration, has stood out to me more so than anything else, right? It's just everyone knows that you guys are going to go do your job. You've been tasked from the president, and they kind of understand what that layout is. But there's a desire to go do this because you had a lot of opportunities. You could have done a lot of other things than take this position. But there's a service component to this. And I think that there's something about the motivations of the people who sit in these seats. And so talk a little as to, there's lots of fun memes. There's lots of, cool things on the internet. There's a lot of cool opportunities you had, but you chose to do this. And so why did you choose to do that?
Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin IRA. Are you a crypto investor with a retirement account, but don't have any crypto in your retirement account?
There's lots of, cool things on the internet. There's a lot of cool opportunities you had, but you chose to do this. And so why did you choose to do that?
Well, first and foremost, I'll say, without making this too partisan, is I think the right meme's a lot better than the left. And I think that's been proven over time, especially over the course of the last election cycle. But no, I think that there's just a keen interest and understanding about how important this industry is. And for me, I couldn't have passed up the opportunity to work alongside who I believe is the greatest president in the history of the United States, to usher in, a completely new financial system as it relates to technology and development, with David Sachs, who's a brilliant person in his own right. But the reason that we've all decided to do this is the same reason the president decided to run in the first place, which is that he cares deeply about the American people, he cares about his communities, and he wants to deliver for them. And I think that in Washington, it's very tempting to do your work in order to deliver for yourself. Here in this building, I think that we have very passionate folks that care about the American people. And every day that we step into this building, we recognize what a privilege.
I want to just reiterate that point. In the White House, they have people that care about the American people. Under the previous administration, they were destroying America, destroying the people. Taking not just money, but power. And of course, handing over the United States over to the globalist world orders and all those sorts of things. And here we are moving into people that actually care about people, want common sense and normalcy back, want safety, want prosperity. It really is quite amazing. But what do they have to do? They have to do some very hard things because we got taken down such a bad direction. We have to do a lot of big, difficult things to put us back in the right direction. And of course, we see those things are actually going to take fruit. I think pretty much from now on, it's going to get very, very good. There's still going to be some challenges on the way, but this is really, really exciting. And the fact that people care is really important. And of course, I'm really loving that. It's really, really exciting.
Which it is to be here and serve on behalf of them. And I think with every decision that we make, we have to keep that in mind. There's a seriousness that exists in this building. And the people put us here, and the people deserve transparency, which is another thing the president's given them more fully. It's funny because as we've talked about the president's positions on crypto in this interview, he's been very articulate and adamant about, how he feels about this space, and hence why he created the Digital Assets Office in the White House. And so we have an open door policy. I think this is probably the most transparent administration anyone's ever seen in the history of the United States, and we want to keep it that way. I'll do interviews with folks that agree and or disagree with what we're doing. I welcome dissenting opinions because honestly, going back to the old adage, biblical adage, iron sharpens iron. And I think that we feel the same way here as we bounce ideas, off of one another and really, try to find the best result for the American people. But, in this space, it's exciting because we've touched on a lot of these things, but the person that's going to benefit the most just from institutional adoption of these technologies, the person benefits the most from Bitcoin being unique and acting as a store of value, similar to gold, is the everyday person, right? And now, granted, we're harnessing in Bitcoins, in the particular instance of Bitcoin, we're harnessing this asset for the American people as well by creating the strategic Bitcoin reserve. But having these outlets to store their assets, and having these outlets to engage in, and being able to touch things that are real and move things to one another in a completely different way benefits them in a tremendous way. So
the stat that I always point out to people, I think it was in 2016, the median U.S. home was like $280,000. Today, it's over 400,000. Yeah. And if you go and you look at Bitcoin, it was like 664 Bitcoin. Now it's 6. And so one, almost doubled. The other went down 90+%. And it really just shows you the power of being able to store your wealth in something that is not going to be debased away.
For sure.
And I think that as I've talked with folks, like that is understood. And it's a simple concept, but it takes kind of a while for people to wrap their head around.
Yeah.
Speaking of information, one of the things that has surprised me the most, I enjoy talking to a lot of the Wall Street or the hedge funds organizations because they have a very different perspective. And I always say that, take Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the most risky asset that they have in their portfolio. In the crypto world, Bitcoin is the safest asset that they have in their portfolio, right? But when I've talked with a number of hedge fund CIOs lately, and these are big multi-billion-dollar funds, I always ask a question. I say, when you walk into your office every morning, what do you check first? Like, what are the data points? And I now increasingly hear some version of, I walk in and I check global liquidity, and then I check the Bitcoin price. And at first I was like, do you guys own a lot of Bitcoin, right? What are you doing? And they said, no, it is a very sensitive asset to global liquidity and interest rates and geopolitical risk and all these different things. And so it's an information tool. Are you all evaluating policies or looking at kind of what's happening on a day-to-day basis based on price, but not as in like, hey, is it going up or down, but more as an information tool? Like, do you pay attention to what's happening in the market as you guys are kind of doing this work that you've been mandated by the president?
We try not to pay attention to price too much because we believe in the premises that we've laid out. And, I can point to the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Executive Order in a sense of how we classified Bitcoin as being unique in its own right, but it certainly gives off information that we can absorb and use to make decisions. But in terms of affecting policy, I feel like we're very well grounded in the sense of how we build our foundation of how we view these things. And I think it's very tempting. I've actually heard from some different actors up here in the industry say, Bitcoin's just running with the market. Well, at first. Because, naturally, because it's so easy to get in and out of the asset class, when margin calls are happening, people tend to go to crypto because they're able to liquidate very quickly. I think that in a longer, more protracted instance, you'd actually see something completely different where people would actually start storing, value in Bitcoin and protecting their asset classes there. So I think you would see a divergence over time. That being said, I think it could be the same in a bull run economy where, people are saying, I'm going to take the excess and throw it into Bitcoin. And you could see a divergence from market sentiment there as well. So I think that, we understand just given its uniqueness and how it's been.
So a very important point you just made there, and that is the wealth effect from stock market. So you guys know I cover the stock market every day very quickly. We go through some of the key metrics. We don't cover the Asian markets, which is probably something we should do, but because sometimes that can take you by surprise when something happens in the Asian markets. But from the US point of view, it's the wealth effect, right? The wealth effect from the stock market, that goes up. The wealth can transfer into the crypto market, especially in the road ahead now that we've got this mass adoption from all the different actors on the economic playing field. It's a really big deal. So it's kind of one of the big reasons why we follow the stock market as at least a brief review of the results every day.
set up, that it is different than other markets. And I think that it gives off a lot of information that way, the same way that gold would over time.
Midterms are now a huge talking point already. People are looking at the tariffs and economic policy, and some people say this is great and midterms will be a landslide. Other people are saying there's no way the Republicans can win in the midterms. Put it aside for a second, the actual midterm elections and the results there. But there is a chance that some of the policy things that you guys want to do could be jeopardized if there is changes in the midterm. And so is it a race to try to get as much done as you can before those midterms? Or how do you guys think about timelines in terms of being able to accomplish the agenda that you have?
Well, look, I mean, we've laid out the agenda, which is these 2 legislative priorities, right? Stablecoins and market structure. And then we have the interagency activity, which we have the 180-day report, and we'll start working towards delivering on that result. But I think that the president has made it very clear to everybody, not I think I know, that he wants to see all of this done before August recess. Because you're right. I mean, the political landscape can change very quickly. We're coming up on midterms in which I think we're going to have phenomenal results because I think that the American people believe in this president. They believe in what he's trying to do, which is serve their interest and not just the interest of the wealthy and powerful. And so I think that at the end of the day, they're going to reward him for all of his hard work and standing in the gap on behalf of them. So I think we'll have phenomenal results in the midterms. But look, we're playing on the field that we currently have. And we feel like we have an opportunity and an obligation to deliver on the president's promises. And I think we're well on our way of doing that.
Talk about...
All right, we're just in the last 10 minutes of this interview now. So we're kind of on the home run. And we've still got some good stuff coming up. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. It's hot off the press the last 3 hours. And as I said in the chat there's an interview between Anthony Pompliano, that's Anthony with an O, and of course, Bo Hines, the executive director, President's Council of Advisors for Digital Assets there, working under David Sachs, of course, the AI and crypto czar. So this is about as good as it gets. So it's pretty exciting. Fat Sammy, at night all, let's keep up the pressure up. We are entering altcoin season. Absolutely, Fat Sammy. Big shout out there. And do well. All right, so let's get into the last home run 10 minutes, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. Don't forget to get out there and spread the show around on X there. Definitely hit it up. People can watch the last 10 minutes and also watch the replay. It's a wonder of videos, of course, on the internet. So definitely get out there, and don't forget to follow on Telegram and get into Discord as well, and of course on X. So get out there. We're expanded onto multiple platforms, and it's wonderful to be there. So let's enjoy the rest of the show.
On a global basis, one of the critiques that I hear people constantly say is, oh, this is for criminals. Oh, the bad actors are using this stuff. I think you and I probably understand that you probably don't want to use a public ledger to commit a crime because people can go and evaluate.
It's not a good idea.
Well, from a law enforcement perspective, they would love for you to do that. But talk about the policies that you guys are coming up with, the interagency work. There are things that you guys are going to create these frameworks for that may actually push those bad actors further away from crypto. But also there are a lot of people who maybe continue to use this stuff. And so how do you guys think about the law enforcement side, the kind of terrorist financing, like all these big scary things that people talk about? You guys aren't a law enforcement agency, right? That's not your job, but it does feel like it's something that you're tangentially at least aware of. And so how is that playing into the scenario?
Well, we have the DOJ that's part of this working group. I know they have phenomenal actors inside of our other law enforcement agencies in the United States that they're starting to, really work on honing in what we need to prevent bad actors from using really any technologies that relates to the digital asset space to move money to finance illicit activity. And with that being said, we have that in mind. I know that the folks in the Hill have that in mind. They're writing these pieces of legislation. There has to be certain AML requirements, anti-money laundering requirements for your viewers, and ensuring that we can protect U.S. consumers and ultimately make sure that folks can also have the privacy that they need. And that's a big component of this that undergirds really what spawned so much interest in crypto in the first place is Americans care about privacy, and part of that is self-custody. And so we want to protect self-custody rights for the American people as well. And those things don't have to be mutually exclusive either, right? Look, you're KYC basically when you buy crypto on any exchange now, which means that people know who you are and they can identify your wallet. But we want people to be able to engage in private transactions in the way that best fits them. And this isn't due to illicit financial activity. This is just due to protecting the everyday rights of the American people. But with that, We also understand we need to prevent bad actors globally from getting their hands on funds. And that's not just with digital assets. That goes back to the institutional ways in which people move money too. And I'm hard pressed to believe, to be honest with you, that there's more illicit finance in the digital asset space than there is in the traditional financial space. They've just become really good at it because the rules haven't changed for a really long time. You don't hear about it as much. So whenever there's big events that happen in this space, everyone loves to jump on top of them. It becomes like, a huge media story. Oh, this was used for that and this was used for another thing. Really, this is happening every day in terms of the traditional systems, on a large scale. We obviously do our best to prevent that from happening, but we all know that it still happens. And here, I think that we have some of the smartest and best minds, one from private industry and two from government, that will come together and say, how do we prevent bad actors such as the DPRK from getting their hands on funds and using these different payment rails in order to do so. I think that we'll come up with a very effective strategy on how to do that. I think that the regulatory framework that's developed will keep that in mind. And we have to balance the interest of protecting Americans' privacy with also protecting Americans more generally from allowing bad actors to get their hands on funds.
I want to finish up with...
Now, in DeFi, we're not so keen on KYC, of course. But the fact that people are going to be protected, generally speaking, especially people that don't know much about crypto, that's a really good thing. So I think we can appreciate that.
Paradoxes and get your thoughts. I don't think there's right answers to these questions, but it'd be interesting to hear your thought process. The first is that Bitcoin was really created, and it was kind of an anti-establishment thing, right? It was like, hey, the global financial crisis happened. Here's this new thing that we're going to do on the internet. It's decentralized. It's outside of the system. U.S. government now holds it. And I think there's a lot of people who see, BlackRock or Fidelity or name, the large financial organization. Those were the organizations that I think Bitcoin kind of started far away from. And it was, something that was different then. How do you balance those two things, right? The ethos of the original kind of Bitcoin story versus now this like true mass adoption of all organizations, nation states, et cetera.
Yeah, I have a fairly good analogy for you. The MAGA movement started as a pretty anti-establishment thing. And the president was elected to be the leader of the free world. And so, he had to do a fairly good job of balancing, the institutions with this movement that was undergirded by the principle of being anti-establishment. And so that's, I know it's a strange analogy, but I think it's a good one as it relates to Bitcoin institutional adoption. Here I think that regardless of how many institutions start participating in the digital asset space or welcoming, Bitcoin in whatever capacity they choose to use it into their systems or investment portfolios, it still provides what people were looking for originally. It provides, a way to store, their value. It provides a way to move funds. It provides, a way to ensure that you can do things, in a private manner as you please. And that's not going to go away. I just think that the institutions now recognize that. They recognize how valuable it is, and they want to be participants in it, which is ultimately a good thing.
Bitcoin, I think a lot of people have said, I want to store value there because I'm worried about the national debt or dollar debasement or name whatever the exact thing that they're pointing to. It's the same reason that they've been buying real estate or gold or anything over the years. Now Bitcoin is this new tool. At the same time, Doge and many of the economic policies that are being put in place should be addressing that national debt and that annual deficit. And so is there some sort of paradox that's hard to hold where maybe the things that are good for the country are actually not good for Bitcoin and its future prospects? No, I don't think so. I think that, eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse, which certainly Elon has done and will continue to do with Doge, is good for the American people, and I think it's also good for Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is different than the U.S. dollar, just as gold is different than the U.S. dollar. That being said, a strong U.S. dollar is, I think, in my personal opinion, is also good for Bitcoin. It's good for gold. Those things aren't mutually exclusive either. And so, yes, we should be cutting fraud, waste, and abuse in our government, ensuring that we have a strong U.S. dollar that the American people will benefit from. But then Bitcoin provides an avenue for them to protect their value in a completely different way, which is ultimately a good thing. And people have wanted to do that, as you noted, for thousands of years. And so, yeah, it is an interesting paradox, but it's one that I don't think is unsolvable in a sense of, these two asset classes, one being a currency and another being a commodity, can benefit together as both strengthen. I think that ultimately is the goal. You mentioned Doge. There's Doge, crypto coin Doge, and then there is Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency. It cracks me up that I see so many people in the media talking about Doge, the government organization, while there are probably people on the internet who are cracking, up as well that that's the coin that they hold. How do you think about, again, kind of these memes where, in a weird way, like that is the message, right? Is Elon has a very specific viewpoint. He's been very kind of unique in his approach to things, but it obviously works. And so how do you balance things like that?
Well, I think it's fun at the end of the day. And, even though there is a lot of seriousness that takes place when you're in this building and you're serving in these roles, it's still important that we have fun, not only here, but the American people more generally. And I think that they respond really well to activity that engages, in some sort of comical nature, because you have to take light in the fact that, we've gotten to where we are, but there's a solution that's there, and it's one the president's driving forward, and that creates a lot of optimism and energy. I mean, like, the one thing that's so unique in this building, and obviously I wasn't here in the prior administration, but you can feel the energy here. It's palpable. People are excited again, and I think they're excited because we finally have a leader that's willing to stand up and say enough is enough. We're not going to let the American people be abused the way that they have been over the course of the last many years. And so I think that the more that we can lean into the seriousness of delivering for the American people while also having fun doing it, I think the better off we'll be in sense of getting people to respond to our message.
All right, so they did bring up Elon Musk there and Doge, and of course someone asked a question. I think it was Sunlight. I think Hicks. No, that's not that one there. Let me jump here. Sunlight says, hasn't Elon stepped down from the Doge now? Now, apparently he was hired on the 20th of January, and his role from 90 days is pretty much expected to end on about the 30th of May. So that's kind of up there. I thought that was a good question, so I had a look at that. 30th of May looks like when he's stepping down there. The other thing, of course, in the White House is the energy. This is exciting, man, to have an administration that's energized for the American people. Come on, that's amazing. So if anyone's worked in any sort of company, that having an environment where everyone's energized and positive and supportive, and you've got a great vision, a great leader, it is a wonderful place to work, and you get so much done, right? You get so much done. So it's pretty cool.
I think that's a lot of people want to have fun. And my dad used to always tell me that there's nothing more fun than winning.
That's right. And the president loves winning, and so do we, I can promise you.
Biggest surprise so far in the first 75, 80 days? And then what is the thing that you're most looking forward to over the rest of the term?
I'd say the biggest surprise to me is how well industries come together to iron out some of the wrinkles that they've had in years past. Because I think one thing that's held up the digital asset space from progressing and maturing was that there were natural conflicts that arose between different digital asset firms and what their ultimate motivations were. And so I think that they've now recognized, because of this unique opportunity, because of the administration that's here, because of the president that we have, because of having the right actors at these interagencies, now is the time to really, establish ourselves as being a legitimate player in the financial space and start helping, the traditional players welcome the technology that they've built. And I think that that's been a very welcome surprise for me. I've also been surprised just how quickly we've been able to move under this administration, under this president's leadership. He trusts his advisors, and then ultimately, he's just a tremendous leader in a sense of ushering things along and pushing things forward, which makes this a much more streamlined process. But what I'm looking forward to the most is really just seeing this president continue to work. I think that this week was a great testament to his leadership in a sense of, I think he gave the media quite a bit of whiplash, certainly the experts, so-called experts in the financial space, about what he was doing or to the level of the playing field as it related to tariffs and international trade. But he's creative, and it goes back to the art of the deal, right? I mean, this is a guy that his art form truly is deal making. And I think what will be exciting over the course of the rest of the term is just to see how he continues to engage in that process and deliver for the American people and produce results.
There's a lot of people who hope he keeps tweeting whenever the market's about to go up. Right? that's for sure. And then what is the thing you're most looking forward to kind of through the rest of the term?
Well, I'm really excited to usher in what we believe will truly revolutionize the financial technological system for decades to come. And I think that we're going to do that in very short order. So, as I've described, we have this demolition phase, construction phase, and implementation phase. I'm looking forward to the implementation phase. I mean, seeing the TradFi folks come to our office and say, what technologies think would work here? Or, how do we plug this in here? That's exciting because that's going to truly change the way that people interact with their finances on a day-to-day basis. And, we're getting to touch something that could alter the course of history. And that's really exciting.
I appreciate you taking the time to do this. We'll definitely do it again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
All right. So that was a great interview. Just came out 3 hours ago there. Very, very cool. And that was between Anthony Pompliano. Of course, he's a founder and CEO, obviously Crypto Pro. And of course, Bo Hines, the executive director, president council of advisors for digital assets there, are working under the AI and crypto czar, David Sachs. So game on. It's game on. We virtually got just about everything we want. And of course, a good question there by Brennan about the tariffs coming up. So we're going to talk about that too. Now, if you missed it, I just wanted to replay the Navarro interview because I think this is kind of a great way to finish the show. I want to shout out to everybody. I think we've had about 70 to 80 people watching the live, so a big shout out there. I think we actually might be up to closer to 90 now. And if you haven't followed on Rumble, smash the follow button, hit the like, repost. Also on X as well. Don't forget to repost, follow over there as well for more great videos. And also on YouTube. Big shout out to all the different channels that we're streaming on at the moment. Very, very exciting times. And, of course, smash the subscribe button. Now, check out the socials. We've got Telegram, X, and Rumble. And, of course, we're doing pretty good there and on YouTube. And all the links in the video description. I'll be updating that again tomorrow. There's a few missing, but all the Discord ones are there. Join up to that as well. And finally, we're going very zooming in on the Pump Tires best performers tomorrow. So look forward to that. You don't want to miss that on Pulse Chain. These are the top 4. We're going to go through them all. We're going to have a big list, and you guys are going to have good insights there, see what's performing well, what you might want to look at. That's going to be a great one for those focused on getting some mad crypto gains. I hope you guys have enjoyed this big, wide view of you got to look at, got to zoom out, and then you can zoom back in again. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this. So let's check out Navarro, and I'm going to leave it for the rest of the show. Take care, everybody, and bye for now.
Joining me now is White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for joining me.
Great to be with you, Maria.
I want to get your take on these deals that President Trump is doing and that you and your team are doing. But first, give us your reaction to now, Xi Jinping, thumping that chest, saying, oh, yeah, you're going there, we're going here, 125% on U.S. goods. How impactful is this going to be?
I love it. I'm going to talk a lot about China. Let me just say 90 deals in 90 days, biggest, broadest tax cut in American history, should be driving the tape. That's what's going to be a bullish market. And if you're not long, you're going to get left behind. Now,
if you're not long, you're going to get left behind. So you know what to do. All right, take care. Catch you in tomorrow's show. It's going to be awesome. The best of pump tires are launched by Richard Hart himself, and some of them have been doing incredibly well. One of the top categories on Pulse Chain. We're going to check it all out tomorrow. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.